Okay, I'd like to call our Finance and Audit meeting for December 7th, 2023 to order at 8:30 a.m. We have all members of the committee present. We have minutes for approval. I'll entertain a motion. Kelly and Brian, any questions or concerns? No? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Public comments?
No one signed up? Last call?
Okay.
Public comment.
Member comments? No? I'm just gonna, real quick under member comments, I'm gonna go over this resolution that we got emailed about and is at our place today that did not make the agenda. Does anyone have any questions about that before it goes to new and unfinished business at the board level? No?
Well, yes.
Yes?
I don't even know how to articulate it.
Okay, go ahead.
We'll just discuss it there.
Well, so you have an opportunity to discuss it now. We're not taking any votes on it. It'll go on new and unfinished business. Yes, by all means, on Thursday at the cow, you can pull it and discuss it again.
We can answer questions now.
Yeah, but, so either way.
Okay, well, yeah, go ahead, explain. I mean, we've read through it, but it's the first time we've seen it, so.
Yeah, so this is a grant we get every year, but this year, the state increased the allocation, so we have to add that to the budget. We budget for it every year, but not that additional piece.
When did you become aware that the state was increasing its allocation?
Good question. For a while now, but we just got the contract executed.
Okay.
So earlier this year, they've been working on it, but it takes a while for those contracts to get fully executed. And it just went to the Board of Health last month.
Last month, like, is in November?
Yes.
Which
20,
okay.
I think I put it in there. It was just approved in November, but it was my fault. I had intended to get it on the agenda, but I was thinking January, that it could come in January, but the timing won't work out as well for us to start spending.
Okay.
Or getting reimbursed for the expenses that we have.
Okay.
And these are for core public health services. So these are mandated programming that we do. So our potable water, our communicable disease, wastewater.
Tanning?
No, so that's not part, so the local health protection grant is the part of the grant that increased the most. Tanning and body art, so we go into those facilities to inspect them. It also has like lead on there, so there's other components of the grant. It used to just be called the Local Health Protection Grant, and those are those core functional pieces. Then they rolled it all together, and it's called the Comprehensive Health Protection Grant, so it includes all of those other grant pieces. The Local Health Protection Grant is the one that increased the most by $162,000. Some of those other grants went down a little bit and some of them went up, but it was a total net increase of, I think I put in there around $22,000 for the other grant components.
So forgive me because this is, again, first exposure.
Sure.
And so there have been additional responsibilities mandated by the state, and now they're funding us with grant money to do that. Can we have any kind of a comparative analysis of what the public health department was doing prior to this, that they're going to be doing increasingly, or?
Sorry, they're not additional they have always been mandated services.
Okay.
But the Local Health Protection Grant share has not increased for 25 years. So there was a push by IDPH and by the local health departments to increase that piece of the funding that comes from the state.
Okay, so that's important.
Yeah, so nothing's changing in terms of
the same thing.
Correct.
We're just getting more
money to do it. Exactly.
More of our money back to pay for local services.
Correct.
Thank you.
Sure.
I appreciate that.
Do you have anything else, sir?
Nope, thank
Okay.
you.
All right, any other questions? Okay, great, then we'll see this on the new and unfinished business.
Thank you.
We go to item 7, routine consent agenda. There are 10 items. Any items members would like removed? Brian?
I'd like to remove 7.3 and 7.4, please. It's mostly for clarification. If you prefer that I not remove them and just ask questions of clarification.
No, that's fine. Any others? Larry?
7.8.
8. Okay. Others? If not, then I'll entertain a motion to approve items 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, and 9, 10. Kelly? Teresa seconds that. We go to vote. Brian?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Teresa?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Motion carries. Okay, so we are done with those. We are on to item 7.3. I'll entertain a motion. Teresa and Brian. Go ahead, Brian.
I just want to clarify, I understand and I support this effort. I think that it's good, and I'm glad that we're doing it in what I consider to be a very timely manner so that it would make it on to the March 19th ballot. I just want to make sure that we all understand and have an opportunity to question the definition that would actually be on the ballot, because this is the wording that would be on the ballot from my understanding. That's the highlighted section in the second page there. And I want to just ask a question quickly about the 1/4%. Does that include food or not? Medicines, food and medicine.
And good morning. Thank you for pulling this, because we do want to provide an update that falls out of the Public Health and Community Services Committee discussion, which they unanimously approved this resolution. Before I go into it, for the record, Scott Hartman, Deputy County Administrator. Joining me is Kyle Brook, State's Attorney's Office, who's done the legal research and drafted the resolution in question as written. Member Slager, to your second question about what it taxes, it does not include food, pharmaceuticals, medical appliances, so it's just more general retail.
So the question I would have, excuse me, Scott, but the question I would have is that do we have to include that in the ordinance or not?
We don't. The statute explains what is taxed and what is not.
Okay, so we don't have to include it in our ordinance then?
Correct.
Perfect, thank you.
And then you had a question on the referendum question as presented within the resolution. Kyle, I'm not sure if you wanted to speak to that specifically.
Yes, Dr. Tucker, what specifically are you looking for as far as?
No, I don't have a question about it. I just want to make sure that we're all aware that, and this is the language that would appear on the ballot, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So I took this language from starting with to pay all the way through bought at retail on that second paragraph. Everyone has it up. The additional language starting from this increase all the way through to the end of November 30th was additional language that we at the State's Attorney's Office had recommended to provide context for the voters, as well as ultimately execute what the intent of the statute is from the point, correct me if I'm wrong, 0.5%? What was the original increase from the 1960s referendum? Whatever the property tax increase was for the additional funds allocated for the mental health board to replace the revenue stream.
And the question as worded contemplates removal of the property tax to support mental health services. And I just want to add on, when Public Health and Community Services discussed this, we had one question that was still outlined, is whether or not substance use disorders could be covered under the definition of mental health through the sales tax. We were pretty confident that the answer was yes, but we still needed final legal research. Kyle sits here today having concluded that research and definitively determined that substance use disorder and developmental disabilities are covered under this sales tax, and they are eligible uses for these dollars. When the Mental Health Board had some concerns or reservations about this because they didn't want to lose those two critical levels of service that they provide, and based on their review of it, not their legal review, but just their clinical review, that didn't necessarily fall under the definition of mental health. But we're looking at this from a legal standpoint because it is statutorily set, and we have determined that it is included. the mental health board asked if they weren't that there would be a backstop by the property tax, but as we sit today, there's not a need for that property tax backstop.
Brian, do you have any other questions?
Nope, that's
Kelly?
it, thank you.
So I also want to talk about what we discussed in public health. Most of us, all but one, had a problem with saying replace on this referendum, that we would rather keep the line item for the levy at a minimal amount like we do Valley High, which is $10,000, because if there is an occasion where something's not going to work correctly, or if there's an error, since this is brand new, then I think, and many of us think, that we need to strike the word replace and just keep the minimal line item. And I would like to see a different version come to the committee the whole meeting. That's one concern. The second concern, so I was at the mental health board meeting when they talked about this, and they all approved it, but they did, besides that one concern about IDD and addiction services, the other was how fast it's happening. There were a couple of the members who said this is happening very fast, and I guess the concern is that if it's going to be on a ballot in March, it is already, by the time we get this passed, it'll be the end of December. There will only be a couple months to educate the public. And it's a question about taxes. So we cannot spend the money to educate the public. The mental health board can't spend the money to do that because we're taxing bodies. So who's going to do that? Who's going to take up this? Who's going to spend the money? And is there enough time to educate the public to vote yes on an additional tax? Are they going to be able to understand that we're taking property taxes off and adding a sales tax? So that's a big concern about this happening so fast. I understand that the primary is an ideal time to have it on the ballot, but if there's not proper education, it's not going to pass. If it doesn't pass, we're going to have to wait till next March of 2025, and then that'll be even a bigger hurdle because it already lost once to get it passed again. So I like the fact that we're giving additional money and more autonomy to the mental health board. I just want to make sure that this will pass and that we're protecting their funding streams.
I could just comment on the timing, and it's driven by the statute. The county board has until January 2nd to file this question with the county clerk's office in order to get it onto the ballot, and so the county clerk can certify it for the March primary. If the decision or determination is to wait until, let's say, the November election, then this postpones the sales tax receipts coming in for a year. If you put it on the March ballot and it's successful, sales tax then will go into effect starting July 1st, 2024, and then the proceeds will actually hit the mental health board by, let's say, about November of 2024. So they would not have any gap in funding because the property tax would have been at the tail end, and then they would start receiving their funding prospectively moving forward for sales tax. If you wait till the November election, based on the filing cycles with the state, it will not be until July 2025 when the sales tax start going in. So then the county board would need to contemplate another sales tax or another property tax to fund that service for fiscal year 25. But it's really, this is a policy decision question for the county board, whether or not you want to pursue this. As Member Wegner mentioned, we really cannot have a campaign regarding the referendum. We can put out factual information. We can use our communications resources to put out that factual information, but as far as any campaign to support or really promote this, that would obviously be by us.
So I just wanted to speak to using the verbiage replace. I think one of the issues if we want this referendum to pass, we need to assure the taxpayers that they're not going to be double hit. For example, passing a motor fuel tax and then also increasing the transportation levy when we had passed the motor fuel tax so that we wouldn't have to increase that levy. And so this way it would have a much greater opportunity to pass with them knowing that now they're actually going to be able to give more revenue to the mental health board and not have that on the property taxes any longer. And then again, this is standard for referendums. It's nothing unusual in the time frame. And it is very important that we do it in a timely manner for the revenue to be coming in before the next budget time frame. Thank you.
Anyone else? Teresa?
This is gonna be short, quick. I'm concerned, the concerns were brought up in public health and that Kelly has just restated. I have concerns about this too. I mean, I feel, talking to the people I know, they're more concerned about more taxes than they are about property taxes. When I talk about property taxes to my local constituents, a lot of them tell me they don't think about it because they don't pay property taxes outright. Like it's either through their mortgage company or their renters. But they definitely do think about their sales taxes. And so I do have a concern that it would not pass simply because it doesn't have, there's a short time limit on this. So I understand why we'd want to put this sooner than later, but we may be doing this to find that we're going to get a no on this. So that's my bigger concern. And also, I also agree with the fact that it would be beneficial to keep the minimal amount on the tax levy for an unforeseen issue that could happen in the future, right? Because we haven't raised Valley High's levy, and we're not likely to raise, but we keep it there as a safeguard, so.
Just go ahead.
Okay, so to get to a couple of questions, I mean, I do understand the perception of if we keep a little bit on, because I was thinking the same thing. It would be helpful to have a small amount on the books as a levy, just in case there's problems down the line. I mean, clearly, if for whatever reason, apparently it was done with Valley High, it's been done before, but I understand not wanting to have that look of double dipping to the public, because that's absolutely not what we would want to be doing, right? Might be very. If it's minimal, it's done as a protection because property tax revenues are much more stable than sales tax. And I get that in terms of the economy overall, because even through people or agencies that rely almost entirely on property taxes didn't fare all that poorly during COVID, because as a revenue source, it was fairly stable relative to other sources of income. And my only and by having that little bit in the levy provides for that, potential if something should happen. It's not meant to be there for any other reason other than if for some reason something happened and those revenues went down enough that they couldn't fund the services that they had been promising. And it's not likely. We've seen the history with the RTA sales tax. I get that. But then, so I don't know. I don't know what that looks like. I think that that continues to be a discussion. I'm just kind of putting that out there. But something else was said. So if they go to a sales tax, does that change the structure? Does that really give them more autonomy, or are we? I mean, nothing else really changes. It's just the funding source. What is the?
That's correct.
Speak to that. Okay.
It's simply just changing the funding source.
We've had that conversation, and certainly not contemplating changing the mental health board's relationship to the board in terms of adopting the budget. They're still appointing the board members. They're still using our finance department, our HR department, our IT department, our facilities department. They're still a department of the company.
And we talked about that too, because I think the sales tax said a 7-member board. Currently, the mental health board is a 9-member board, but there's provisions.
William, which is interesting because the statute that provides for this special retailer's occupation tax does then contemplate with the mental health tax that you do have a board of 7 members that you mentioned, but then it references or ties it directly back to the Community Mental Health Act and with the board that's described in that act, which is what we're currently under. And it's in the Community Mental Health Act says a 7-member board, but in this case the chairman can appoint 2 additional members, which is how the mental health board now is 9 members. It's 7 plus that 2. And that is simply transference over into this ordinance. But also, too, you have the same powers and duties of a mental health board under the Community Mental Health Act because of that direct connection into the special retailers occupation tax. So basically, it just transplants that board from one act into this act, just by reference. Am I
Okay.
correct in saying that?
You nailed it.
Thank you.
Okay, and do we anticipate how we would, as, moving this forward, we would be an educational arm, we can't put any money into real, I mean, we can, I suppose, what money it costs to educate the public about it, but certainly there's no, I mean, are you anticipating having somebody help drive the question outside of the county, outside of the county?
I
Or?
think that's a question for the advocates, right? I mean,
Right.
as Scott said, as a county, we can have a frequently asked questions page on the
Right.
website. This is what it means. This is what it would mean for the average, resident. Those kinds of questions. We certainly aren't going to advocate one way or the other.
Okay, and then this would, if by chance it fails in March, then we wouldn't, because some comment was made, oh, we could try again in November, and I'm hearing that that's not the case. We cannot do that, okay. All right,
Yeah, thank you. With the replacing the 10 million, if we leave it like that and replace it, does that eliminate the tax levy? Once you do that, it's not going to be on the tax bill at all? Or it can be on the tax bill? I mean, that's sort of very specific number there.
I think it's stating a very clear intent of the county board. I think after 3 years, the levy would just go away.
And that's the question, I'm sorry.
After 3 years, why after 3 years?
That's, I think, we're kind of molding, or we're kind of fusing older legislation that created the Mental Health Act versus newer legislation that created a property tax cap. Right now, with the tax cap law, if you don't do anything for 3 years, it goes away.
So that levy would be there for 3 years if something didn't work out with the tax.
I think we're stating an intent of the county board.
The intention would be to eliminate it, but we'd have it 3 years to, if there was an issue, so there's no problem writing it like this then.
It has to be written one way, and I think you want to write it the way that you intend to do it.
That would be the intention unless there was some critical state issue come up. Okay. Then that's fine, I think, with me. The other part is that Brian brought up about the food and medicine being excluded. Why won't we put that in there? Is there a reason that excluding food and medicine wouldn't be in this? Like after the first sentence of the second paragraph? Tangible personal property, Ballot, retail excluding food and medicine? Is that clear to the public, or is that just adding more language that we don't need?
You already pay a little bit different tax rate on groceries depending on if they're for immediate consumption or consumption at home. You could, it's going to get real complicated.
Okay, I just was curious why. I didn't know if it would make it clear to the public or less clear. And if you feel like it's going to muddle it up, it's fine the way it is then.
So I think part of the information that could go out could clarify that. The question really goes back to what the statute requires. And the first sentence in the second paragraph is additional context that the statute suggests to include. And so that wording is just picking out of the statute.
Okay.
With all due respect, I don't think that there's any prohibition on adding that additional language, but at the same time, it does link them. And so I think it's a question that we have to address whether or not we think that that's going to be a greater reinforcement, just like using the word replace. Is that a greater reinforcement to get it passed or not? So I think that's the underlying question.
And that was, yes, you're right, for me. I just think it seems like it would read better, be more transparent. But if there's other issues because of other taxes and how tax rates go on groceries, then I understand why it's not there.
And I think that's our hesitancy because the way the sales tax is put in place, and there's several different layers of sales tax, and some things are taxed under one sales tax, and some things are taxed under another, groceries, pharmaceuticals. And I think we would,
Rates in different towns already.
yeah, I think we would overcomplicate something, and we possibly would be chopping off fingers if we state something that the statute doesn't support and it is indeed taxed. So I would just recommend to leave it as is and as recommended by the statute.
My only concern would be that if at some point in the future the state of Illinois changes that tax or changes that language, now we're, our approved didn't meet whatever that change is, and so now we're in conflict. I think that could become an issue.
Yeah, I ultimately think that this is the best thing to do, just leave it as it's written and let statutes basically give the direction here. But in the educational material, in the factual material that we can put out, I think we need to explain that. I think that that's something we can do.
So before we go to round two, my only comments on this, I don't like the word replace. Personally, I would like the word to be remove. And so I would rather have this say, this increase would remove the $10,975,000 allocated amount for the mental health board from the property tax levy and remove currently existing, because that's, again, that's confusing. To me, it's just removed from the property tax levy, period. Because currently existing, if I'm a voter, I'm gonna be like, well, so does that mean that it just removes it for 1 year, or does that mean it removes it forever? I mean, I don't, currently existing is.
It's kind of double speak.
Yeah, correct.
Well, could you just say mental health board from the existing property tax levy effective November 30th, 2024? So just saying when it's gonna happen, it's at the end.
Well, you would still leave that levy we removed effective November 30, 2024, because that gives the definitive of when it happens. But anyways, that's my thought process. I think there was and I could go into why we left Valley High the way we left Valley High, but to me, this is a very different situation than that. And to me, this hopefully will be able to generate more dollars for mental health care in our county. And Carolyn, I agree that it's not quite as stable as property taxes, but I think that's something that the mental health board needs to take into account when they are allocating dollars. And you know, if there is a larger increase in the first year, perhaps they take some of that and put it into reserves in order to help with the years where that could potentially be an issue, so that the funding source for the clients is somewhat stable based on a revenue stream versus just simply every year we get what we get and we dump it out. And you know, I mean, to me, that's not being quite as prudent with the dollars as perhaps they should be. So, and I would like to see this pass, and I personally think if we are wishy-washy in what it appears, i.e. kind of what Terry said, you know, that there's a possibility that we could still have this under the levy. I mean, as a voter, I'd be like, screw that. I'm not going to trust politicians to do that. I mean, that's just my personal cynicism or cynicism. Yeah, hey, I got it right. So, anyways, that's my comments. We can go to round two. Like Terry was first.
Well, to address the concern about a bad economy lowering the tax revenue, if we have a strong economy, sales tax revenue will increase because of people having money to spend. In an economy such as this, we've got 25 to 75% inflation with continuing inflation. So even if spending decreases, the amount that's being taxed is higher, and so then you get the stable revenue from the sales tax. And you could probably have them pull up a model for that so that we could confirm that, but that is in fact what happens.
Anyone want a second?
Well, no, well, you go ahead, because mine was to get back to something that you had said, which is a little off.
Well, I wanted to go back to the remove or replace, which I like remove better. I did not know, so we will give it 3 years before this will be taken off the levy, correct?
No,
Is that what you said?
No, it automatically gets removed, but with the look back
Oh, that's right.
the look back, you could theoretically go back and if something were to go haywire and we were to remove it, then there's a look back provision that you could go back and do.
that's
That's
still
kind of, again, meshing the old mental health act law with newer sales tax.
and we're sure we
But
can
this
do that.
board, or the board of next November is going to be the one that makes the decision on that levy.
Right.
If the voters pass this, you're committing to not doing the levy.
Right. I just mean legally, if we give this as is or with remove, we would have 3 years for the look back and be
Yeah,
able
I
to.
guess this is what, I appreciate everyone's wanting to protect the mental health board, but what are we, I don't quite connect the dots to what we're really afraid of. There's going to be retail sales.
Yeah.
And they are already projected to generate $4 million more next year than the current property tax, or $3 million more than the property tax. So even if they staggered a little, even if they were flat, even if they dipped a little bit, they're still going to be more than you are at now. I think, as Chairman Scala mentioned, with a little bit of active management of a fund reserve, there's a lot of secret there. And let's remember also, if this is to pass in March, collection starts in July, the money starts to come in September, there's a second installment of property tax that also comes in November. That's another $5 million. It's $5.5 million. So we ought to be able to manage that fund reserve to provide that kind of security that you guys are seeking.
And I'm not opposed to this. I was just want to make sure that they're going to be okay, because I know they had some reserves too, or reservations, not reserves. They had some reservations.
Well-founded reserves. No one wants a mental health board to
Right.
go short, and no one wants them to not to be able to meet their commitments.
Right.
But I just,
Sure, expand.
and I'm really stating, I understand those concerns to a degree, but boy, it would be some kind of Armageddon where there wasn't retail sales.
And as long as we're sure that all our T's are crossed and our I's are dotted and that this is all legal, and then I support this.
Any others?
So I really, when you made the point about how to manage money, I think that's really the issue, is really making sure that you're not dumping all that money out, but making sure that you're adjusting for any ups and downs with those revenues. So that's really spot on. In terms of having the levy there, realistically, even if we got and kept it 10,000, are we really going to increase our tax levy enough to get them back up to whole? No, this is an either or situation. So having that little amount in there, I don't know, and I don't know if we really want to take the time. You said if you could do it like a minute or two, of what the reason was for the Valley High maintaining their levy in there, because I think realistically, we're not going to come back and raise a levy with that little amount to account for refunding them through the property tax levy. It would be such a big jump from after we've already removed it. It's not going to happen. So, but why did we keep it for Valley High?
And I can attempt to answer that question. So Valley High is different than this because Valley High does have its own revenue stream, right? It has money from Medicare, Medicaid, so it has dollars coming in and runs as an enterprise fund. The property tax levy is there and it was adopted by referendum, and it stays in place in the event that if the county board wanted to change your bed mix and you wanted to have, much more Medicaid services, which for a long time were subsidized by these other revenue generating rooms, the Medicare rooms. If you wanted to change that bed mix and say, if you want to go to 100% Medicaid, and really target the most indigent population, there's not enough revenue coming in to support that. So the property tax would then be available to cover that cost and to subsidize that difference between the cost of doing business per room and what we're receiving through Medicaid. So that's why that is in place. Now, the tool's still available to you. We've done a lot of modeling on how that would work, and we actually have received really good news in the past couple of months that the Medicaid rate was substantially increased. So that is a little bit of a game changer, and we're working on redoing the model. But that's why it was kept in place, is to give you that tool. If you wanted to change that bed mix, and you needed to subsidize dollars to cover that cost.
We don't expect that Medicaid dollar to be up as high as it is now for another 3 or 4 years, but we're going to capture it while we can. But again, it's a tool. It's there. This and past county boards have been clear. We want Valley High to be self-sustaining. We don't want them to rely on property tax. But it's still there if future boards want to change that.
I was just going to say, that was the board thinking when we did that. Instead of removing it, because once we remove it, that entity has to be self-sufficient. Otherwise, there's no revenue stream to support it. And there was a concern because, again, the reason why you go back to the question that was approved by the voters, the question specifically talks about the fact that we're helping the most needy people of the county by building this facility in order, the people that can't afford to do anything else, they have to go somewhere. And so the intent was to take care of those people. And like Scott said, if the bed mix needed to change in order to achieve that, we wanted, the board at that time wanted to allow future boards the autonomy to be able to do something different if need be.
I think it all comes down to the acceptance of risk. We have to understand there's going to be risk. There was risk before, there's going to be risk after. But I think we have to focus on what is the intent. The intent for this body is for us to remove the property tax levy for the mental health board. And I think that the mental health board understands that is the underlying intent. I think that's an intent that people as voters can understand as well and frankly would appreciate. So I think that we have to accept the fact that is there always going to be risk? Yes, there's always going to be risk, but I think that this is a risk question that is really well-founded as identified by Scott and Peter. The second thing that was raised earlier as a real question is the timing here and whether we can get this passed. And I agree that that is a concern that we have, especially in today's environment. However, we had a significant number of people come before the board as entities that used the opportunity of the property tax levy to provide the services, rightly and appropriately so, much appreciated. But those individuals have to understand what's going on here, and they need to step up to the plate, frankly, and be as passionate about getting this passed as they were about trying to get us to increase the levy. So I think that burden of responsibility beyond education, because we can provide factual educational materials. We have that legal right. However, they need to be the one that expresses that same degree of passion and enthusiasm and support for this that they did when they came before the county board.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna make a motion to remove or change language a little bit.
Replace,
Yeah.
okay.
Unless you were, I don't.
If I was gonna change that sentence, I would put something to the effect of removing the property tax levy in the front part of that sentence instead of the back part. Now, we got the dollar amount, but to tie the dollar amount with the removal a little closer together in that sentence, because people just don't read all the way through the sentence.
So I think, okay, so let me first go with what I would like to change the wording to, and then I think I agree with you, move that up further. Instead of furthermore, have that be the first sentence of that paragraph.
Yeah, we don't need furthermore at all.
Well, right, but,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Mike, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I just, before we vote on anything for the changing of restructuring that paragraph, I just wanted to voice some concerns just for food for thought.
Well, go ahead, I don't wanna make a motion and then have you have food for thought that I now have to change my motion.
I just want to make sure that you had your time there. The statute, I mean, the statute is extraordinarily clear when it comes to what needs to be there.
Right.
And the manner in which it needs to be presented. And the statute says it has to substantially conform to the structure, okay? What we're doing here is starting from to pay, ending at the first sentence of that second paragraph at retail is right from the statute. Putting anything in between before that sentence or even at the very, very top, I would advise against.
That would not have been my intention. I was just changing the sentence after retail.
And I apologize if I misunderstood, but
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that if we're gonna restructure anything.
No,
that those first two sentences would not
Well,
necessarily be.
the first sentence of the second paragraph needs to stay where it's at.
Correct, in my opinion.
Okay, and then anything after that is subjective as to where it goes.
For further context of what our ultimate
Yes.
intent is, yes.
Okay, beautiful.
Question?
Yeah.
What would be the difference in furthermore, this increase would replace versus furthermore, this would remove?
As far as,
They want to change
just
that
as
word.
a general
but
proposition?
Are there any,
No,
like legally, what does that mean? Replace versus remove?
so, like, go ahead, Scott.
So, right now it says replace, and it talks about the 975, that is going to be levied this tax, or this tax year. What we're saying is we're replacing those dollars that we are through property tax levy with the sales tax. So you're swapping them out. The $10,975,000 is still going to appear on the tax bills this tax cycle, but what we're representing is that money is going to go away in the future. And I think that second sentence definitively says that tax levy will be removed. So if we say, and my concern, I guess, with that suggestion would be, furthermore, this increase would remove the $10,975,000 that could give somebody the understanding that you're not going to see it on the tax bill. You're going to maybe can make a representation that the kind of board may be looking to abate, that coming up. So I think if you say remove, you might create an unintended thought process in the voter's mind. Right now you're saying replace, and I think replace is you're just talking about the dollars moving forward. I'll tell you, I know it's a little wonky to have that in there, but how do we best describe that intent? Because you still are going to have that tax levy in place this tax cycle. But moving forward, after November 30th, when you strike the tax levy for future, you're saying that it's no longer going to be there. That's my thoughts. I know it's semantics.
Respectfully disagree with that, because to me, someone replace means you're taking one thing and you're moving something else. Remove means you're getting rid of it. And I think the intent is we're removing it and we're getting rid of it. I mean, I don't think that's a wishy-washy position.
So, and I say it's semantics, it's just how we're looking at it.
Yeah. So Larry, to your point, I think the next sentence, this increase would take effect. I think that needs to be there in that order, just because if someone wants to know, we're telling them what we're trying to do and telling them immediately when it's taking effect. So I like that part of it, but I'm changing the rest of this, the part after that. So what I would like the sentence that starts with this increase. So I'm changing everything after, not changing, I'm just removing some words out of that part of it. So it would read, this increase would take effect on July 1st, 2024, and
Agreed.
And this increase will remove the $10,975,000 allocated for the mental health board from the property tax levy.
And then you could just go ahead and say effective November 30th, 2024.
Yep.
I don't think that and I agree with 100%. The only thing is, I don't think you have to say this increase again. You already said this increase would take effect on July 1st, 2024, and would replace the allocated amount effective November 30th, 2024. I mean, everything you said, I disagree.
Would you say it would? I mean, what was the proposition?
And would replace. You've already got this increase in the first.
This increase would be effective July 24 and would
replace
or remove the 10 million.
Okay. Oh, I see that one. Okay.
2024.
Okay.
Yeah.
This increase. Okay. Got it.
And the fewer
I was
words,
doing
the
this.
easier it is to understand.
I agree. Did you get all that, Kathy?
So after the $100 of tangible personal property brought at retail, we would continue and say, this increase would take effect on July 1st, 2024, and would replace.
And will remove.
And will remove.
And will remove the $10,975,000 allocated.
Health board from the health levy. That levy would be removed effective November 30th, 2024.
It would just be from the mental health board effective November 30th, 2024. from the existing property
Allocate,
tax
so you have,
levy
so after the
effective, right.
10,975,000, you'd say allocated.
Needed
And then for
for,
the mental health board,
from,
hold on a second, I'm letting her get
I
caught up
know,
here.
I'm trying to think here.
From the property tax levy effective November 30th, 2024.
Existing in there?
I would flip the part about the allocation and from the property taxes levy and tie the 10 million and go the 10,975,000 from the current property tax levy that is currently allocated to the mental health board, and get the number and removal from the property tax levy as close in that sentence as you can.
Would you say that one more time?
I would put, he had 10,975,000 allocated to the mental health board and then removed from the property tax. And I would flip those two things. I would have the 10 million removed from the property tax. So the 10 million and then removed from the property tax are as close together in that sentence as possible.
Allocated for the mental health.
Currently allocated for the mental health board.
Effective November 30th. I like that, actually.
Can you read what we have so far?
Scott's whiteboarding it, here we go. His favorite thing to do, this is like, you know, Scott, if I can do whiteboard every single meeting, this would be fabulous.
Thank you, sir, I appreciate that.
Anybody else see how fast you jumped on?
I know,
Yeah,
I know it's saying the same thing, but
do-
just people just read.
Scott, you could just, Scott, just do a blank document.
That's what I'm gonna do.
And just write it, I mean, I don't.
So while he's getting that set up, and I agree that you kind of want to get that up front, but at this point, it's in the middle of the paragraph, and by leaving it at removing it from the property tax levy effective such and such, that's what you're ending with. And to me, sometimes the things that you read first and the thing you read last is what sticks most in your mind. But I can see to go, I know what you want to get those together and get it out there right up front, because they might stop reading. So, I don't know. It's a little bit easier when you can see it in writing.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have
Thank you.
effective 2024 and would remove the
10 million. From the property tax levy.
Effective November.
Allocated for mental health board. Effective November 30th, 2024.
Removing all caps. No, probably can't.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Well, we can.
You also want to change the floor to a dollar sign.
There we go.
That's all right.
So the county doesn't pay me to type?
It's okay.
You're doing an excellent job.
That's pretty obvious.
I think they do, Scott.
Well, they do now, apparently. All right, so effective on July 1st, 2024, and would remove the $10,975,000 from the property,
See, my fingers do the same darn thing when I'm typing, you know? I don't know.
Especially if you're talking.
I have a lot of forms.
from the property tax levy allocated for, is it the mental health board, effective November 30, 2024.
I think, though, this increase would take effect or would be effective. That's the only issue that we have right now. I think.
It's good, you guys break that sentence up somehow.
So,
My English teacher would say it's a run-on sentence.
As long as you have enough commas.
I think, yeah, and I think that's all.
You know, when Paul was writing to the Corinthians, you ever read his readings, or his writings? They're frickin' just one big run-on sentence.
That's true.
Paul was not a writer.
They didn't have that much grammar
Yeah.
back then.
They didn't have that much grammar back then?
That's why I couldn't
This
follow it.
has to have something associated with it. You can't just have the word this way.
well, I'm trying to respond to the thought and.
Yeah.
You're still
yeah,
following the first.
So,
So, would you write out the whole sentence, though, for us, please?
At the
okay,
top.
so this,
This
This increase would,
well,
right at the very beginning, be where it says ... Just
Yeah.
put in,
no, at the very beginning.
Increase would
There you
take
go.
no, so I think, this is carrying forward the previous sentence. you know, and I can put it on those, this increase would take effect on, okay. I can just take that.
This removal would
Would
be effective November 30th?
take effect, okay.
Yeah, put that in here, you got it.
This levy, this,
Clarity, we're keeping
So-
the first sentence in that paragraph though?
Yes, that is a true statement.
If you want to, I mean, you could put a comma after 2024 and get rid of the and would.
You all, oh, sorry. You could also just, the second this will be effective, you could just, so allocate for mental health board starting November 30th, 2024.
Yeah,
Yeah, because you're having effect twice in.
Well, how about, okay, what if we were, instead of saying this increase can we say the sales tax will take effect? So that we're clear about what we're saying?
That's good.
Huh?
But then you're highlighting tax right there too.
Well, increase in sales, increase in tax are both words that hurt the heart, so.
Well,
And it's,
you have sales tax above. I mean, I'm just trying to be
Yeah.
consistent.
This policy.
I like that. This sales tax would be effective on July. I like that.
I wouldn't say increase, just say this sales tax would take
Yeah.
effect.
Would be effective. Would
Take effect.
be effective.
I think take effect.
Take effect, okay, on July 2024 and comma, I'd put comma, would remove,
You don't have a subject in that second part, so you don't need to.
would remove. You have three things there.
oh, yeah.
Sure.
I'm not an English major.
Remove the 10 million from the property tax levy allocated for or to the mental health board. For,
for
you
the
guys.
and then just effective November 30th.
And
2024.
would be effective. I think that should
Oh,
stay
you
all
can do
the
it that
same.
way.
Yeah.
But I think
And-
everything from the period to effective, like the mental health board, effective November, you don't need this would be.
I think that needs to be
And
and.
if you're going to do that, it
And
has
be
to be
effective November
this
30th.
something would be. You can't just say this would be.
What about, we go back to it being, this sales tax will take effect on July 1st, 2024, period. The $10,975 million property tax levy allocated for mental health board will be removed November 30th, 2024. Because now we have Larry's back to the short sentences, short to the point, yeah.
Yeah, but the sales tax effective and removing the property tax with the end of the thing says one for the other.
Right.
A little
So
bit
you
more.
could say the removal of the 10 million from the property tax levy. That way you're getting removal and 10 million at the same time. The removal of the property tax levy allocated to the mental health board. Or you can keep the 10 million there.
would be effective. You want the 10 million back in?
Yeah.
Because that's the other place it'll be, so they need to see how large, how big the removal is
Right.
going to be.
No, I think it needs to be there.
And I think,
Just,
so then this should just say effective.
yes.
You don't have a verb, the removal of the,
Yeah, it doesn't
Right,
doesn't
that's
really
true.
say the intent here.
Right.
This just says the removal of the property tax. Really? So why are you removing that property tax? It doesn't say that. It has to say this sales tax would take effect and remove, blah, blah.
I
And
agree.
remove.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Otherwise
verb
it-
has to be the
The
verb.
second sentence isn't tied to the rest of the
Right,
paragraph.
not tied.
Right.
And there's your verb, remove.
there you go, yes.
And remove the 10,000 from the property tax levy allocated for mental health board effective November 30th, 2024.
Yep.
That's it.
Short and sweet.
I got the remove by property tax and the money all in one spot, so I'm happy.
Yep, and I agree with you. I think that's.
Okay, I think this looks,
It's a group effort.
I think this looks good. Does everyone agree, or?
We don't have a motion.
Well, I was making a motion, but I can make a motion now to adopt this wording up on the screen here.
After the word retail, is that where we're at?
Yes, after the word retail
Or
in
after,
the second paragraph. And does our state's attorney's office feel like this is?
Could he have, so committee of the whole to review it? And contemplate it?
Naturally, but first blush.
My only concern, and it's, as Scott and I have started to work together a lot more, he knows that I'm a little bit of an overthinker. So I'll say this, take this with a grain of salt. I think my concern that's already been voiced here was confusing the voter, because the standard is going to be reasonable voter, right? If ultimately there's going to be a challenge to this proposition, it would come in the form of being, having a lack of clarity and not being, not expressing the intent of the reasonable voter, right? I'm paraphrasing, but you get my point, right? So having conciseness of a sentence is important for attention span, but is it going to be legally sufficient to not confuse a voter? And I think that this committee has properly identified that having language that may be confusing about what takes effect when would be your biggest hurdle with having one sentence. And as I'm looking at it, it seems like that's what you're going for. I'm just trying to think about it from a couple different perspectives. So I guess that'd be my only hesitation with having a sentence like that. Because it says the sales tax would take effect on July 1st, 2024 and remove the amount from the property tax levy allocated for the mental health board effective November 30th, 2024. If ultimately somebody is looking at that quickly, they'll see two dates in there and not understand. That's what I'm concerned about. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm saying if ultimately addressing what Mr. Smith had indicated, having conciseness and people stop reading, if they're going to read one sentence and they see two dates, that could be confusing, is the only concern that I have from a legal perspective. Having said that, like Scott said, I'd like to have a little bit of time to make sure that I can research that issue for you, because ultimately, I don't think breaking up sentences into how it was portrayed, I think would diminish the intent nor lose the attention span of the voter, but you folks would know way more than I would about that being involved in the election process. So,
well, how about this? How about we
concerned.
adopt this? We give you till next week Thursday, and if you have suggested changes from this, then you can come back on Thursday and say, after reviewing this, I want to tweak this a tad, and I'm sure that we're all open to that. I'm not trying to ask for your blessing today, but
No, I appreciate that. No, I'm just here to advise. So ultimately,
if you had to break it into two sentences, so you could put a period after 2024, and the next sentence would be 10 million.
The sales tax would, yeah, 'cause to Terry's point of.
But I'd like to start with the way it was, but I think there would be an option of going this route without changing it too much, the meaning of it.
And frequently asked questions, then we can put, why does one take effect July 1st and the other one not stop until November 1st? And then explain to people because the levy was passed in November of 2023 and goes for the duration of the budget of 2024.
Would it be possible, instead of putting November 30th, 2024, could you say with the 2025 fiscal year?
but no one knows when that is.
I know.
Right.
That's the point.
Yeah, well,
And that sounds much more intimidating.
I'd go back to the way it was written first, but this could be an option if the state's attorney doesn't feel comfortable with that.
And I want to be clear, I'm not saying that I feel uncomfortable with the way that you had it. I just want to make sure that I do the best job I can for you.
Before we get to the cow, I have an option out there that we could change it to something that would be suitable.
So I made a tweak to this by putting a period after 2024 and starting a new sentence. We got to revert back to what it was previously, which was
No,
this.
I like the newest version, the two sentences. It makes it a little bit more clear.
did you have one more thing?
no, I'm not gonna add anything because I can get really bogged down on wordsmithing. So I'll let you guys kind of just go at it. But to your point, I think really, by doing this, we take 3 sentences down to 2. And you bring forward removing it from the property tax, which you kind of wanted to address at the front end of that second sentence, or that sentence. And then we just put effective November 30th, so it just combines that third one. So it shouldn't be too far off from where we were by actually pushing that into 2 sentences.
The only other thing I would change, instead of would, I put will. It's a stronger.
But hopefully that's not too far.
Don't you need the other be will to
Conditional
though, for the
first.
sales tax?
I don't know, I mean,
What?
like,
No, it's
So what-
conditional.
There
don't
still
think
has
the
to
will
be a
will?
word between this and will. It's for proper English, just saying.
No, this
This
becomes,
what will remove.
So this
Yeah.
sales
Why
tax.
can't you
Sales
say
tax-
will instead of would?
because it's conditional. It's like this sales tax would, this would.
Okay.
if it passes.
shall.
Yeah,
It's conditional.
because we don't know if it's gonna pass.
Right.
Okay.
But you still have to
I guess
have a word.
it gotta be would.
So,
I guess it's would.
and so the comment of putting additional context,
I think you're reinforcing a
You
sales
have to.
tax if you put that
Well,
in.
you have to have something in there. This something would remove for it to be correct grammar.
It wasn't in the original, right, because
No,
we
this
have
is-
this, huh?
This referendum, this approved referendum wouldn't remove, that way you get rid of sales tax, but it's more, it's more words.
But this is coming after the sentence, right? This would mean that a consumer would pay an additional 20, that thing is still
Yeah,
there,
this
right?
becomes the subject.
Subject, yeah.
This becomes the subject. You don't have to repeat it.
Because what we're not showing there is that first sentence, correct? Am I correct on
Right,
that?
it's the implied subject. Right.
Okay, so we're gonna take out, remove that. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, you can't, you have to have something in there.
No, you
But
don't.
hold-
It's a
but
sentence
hold- just an
This is
idea.
in there. That's the implied subject. Implied subjects come from the previous sentence. It's
Well-
modifying that previous sentence.
But I have something else that might take out more words. Effective July 1st, 2024, this sales tax would remove the blah, blah, blah from the property tax amount for it effective. I could do that.
Would it make?
And instead of effective November 30th, you could put on November 30th, 2024.
You can also say this referendum would remove, if you, right, if you don't want to say sales tax a second time, this referendum is removing, is effectively removing it. So this referendum would remove the 10,000.
But with all due respect, it's not the referendum that's removing
It's the county board that's doing it.
it. Well, it's,
That's true.
All right, let's take out sales tax.
Yeah, we're
Let's-
promising.
Let's bring this forward like this, and then the state's attorney's office can come back with some modifiers if need be. And the full county board can discuss this, and if the full county board wants to tweak it a little bit, then I whatever.
When you want to say if you want to say the county board would remove, then that's fine too. I know, because you really want something there, right? So
It's a sentence before.
the county board would remove the 10,000.
Let's leave it like this,
Okay.
if you don't mind.
I don't
And
know.
then we can have a further, I'm not an English person
Yeah.
at all, so. All right, so I'm making the motion to adopt this language and strike everything after retail in the current resolution.
second.
This is a resolution, right? Yeah. Okay, there's a second to that. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that modification is adopted. Are we ready to vote on the modified resolution? Okay, we're gonna do that. Kelly?
Yes.
Teresa?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Motion carries. Thanks, Scott.
thank you. Kyle, thank you.
What time?
All right, we're on to 7.4. I'll entertain a motion to adopt 7.4.
So moved.
Brian and Larry seconded. Brian, you pulled this one?
Yeah, the only thing I have a question is very, very minor, I apologize, but in the third whereas, it says, whereas the personal expenditure needs, isn't that personnel?
Oh, an E versus an A.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's personnel instead of personal.
Okay, that's a Scrivener error. We'll make that.
But I have, otherwise, and that's why I asked you beforehand, if you wanted me just to comment on it.
And then I asked for grace. I know that in the consent agenda, we had 7.1. I did have a question. It's not going to change my vote, but I would like to be able to ask my question about 7.1, so.
Okay, we can go back and do that after we're done with 7.4 here. All right, is there anything else on 7.4? If not, we'll go to vote then. Teresa?
Yes.
Terry? Larry?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Okay, motion carries. Okay, Terry, what was your question on 7.1?
I wanted to understand why we need additional alternate board review members.
I contacted Mr. Ross yesterday about this, and he spoke to the fact that we anticipate there perhaps being more question. I mean, Peter, it was like Peter, Mr. Ross wanted to respond.
No, well, first of all, I very much appreciate you speaking with Bob yesterday, and he told me to talk about it. We have to have a board of that's a requirement. We have used very, very little since 2015, 2016. Bob does a good job of dealing with the assessments. The whole assessor's office does a good job of doing assessments with our traditional board of review. And our three-man board of review, they don't waver. They're there all the time. But that has been changed. As I said, something could happen. And we have to have a tested, certified, in-place board of review alternates just for the event of the unforeseen. And that's all this is.
And I guess for clarification, the second paragraph where it says the clerk of the Board of Review has suggested that the number of anticipated complaints filed with the McHenry County Board of Review will create a situation where alternative Board of Review members may be necessary to exist. Are they saying that they're expecting to have an increased number of complaints regarding the assessments?
I appreciate that's how that reads. I suspect it's boilerplate language that's been used many years in a row. This was a quadrennial, so there may be a little bit more activity this year, but it's not anticipated. We can't handle that with our traditional board review.
Okay, I was just wondering why they were projecting that it would increase over any other year.
That's something that if there is a projection, it's because of quadrennial, but I'm not anticipating that it's going to be bigger than.
What, just real estate background, everybody's taxes are going up 10% or more.
Yeah.
So there's going to be,
The assessments are. The assessments.
Yeah.
actually, in some areas, the assessment stayed the same, but the state multiplier went up and that affected the taxes, but people don't understand that, so they still want to appeal.
That's exactly right.
I've heard a lot more people this year, so they're going to appeal.
So,
And we used to have alternate members, so Mr. Russell conveyed to me that he had felt like he had done a good job kind of controlling our costs because there's a cost to having alternates, but it is the time to replace to have alternates. There was a member of our community who questioned why we didn't have the alternates, and they thought that was a failing on our part to not have the alternates since they were a mainstay at some point that we got rid of. So, I mean, I do support having the alternates. I feel like there's only 3 members and you need 2 for a quorum. And so, for timely,
It's very
effective
difficult
government.
to reach. Again, this is a required, we have to have a set of alternates. Very difficult to recruit and attract a certified group of alternates who have passed the appropriate tests when you don't use them. But that's what we're doing. We've got a group that we really don't use very much. One of these candidates, and I don't know the names, so forgive me, but we do have a rather mature member of our board of review who may be stepping down this summer, and then one of these candidates on the alternate group is very likely a candidate to fill that spot. So I think it's important to keep he or she, active and engaged, and that's more of Bob's feeling. And then Bob can't be here today. He had a medical procedure, but he wanted to be here today. I assured him that if there were questions on this that Teresa and I couldn't answer, that we will have him there, the committee of the whole.
Great. And then just to clarify what I've been told, we're looking at 10 to 20% increases on the property taxes, which is likely to increase the request for appeals. Is that
Again,
in line with what we're seeing?
I mean, we have excuse me, I shouldn't.
Well, no, that's fine. I mean,
We traditionally have more requests coming through on a quadrennial. That's
Right,
just
but
a natural cyclical thing that happens.
But my understanding is that the property taxes, the bills that people are actually getting are 10 to 20% more this year.
People haven't gotten bills yet.
Right.
They've gotten
But
assessments.
looking at the assessment
Everybody's
and
assessment rate's the
forecasting,
same.
so.
It's the same, it's what our local government's asking for.
Wasn't that capped at 5%?
No.
There's a state law that caps your increases.
Right, but when you have the increase in the assessed valuation.
Right, but
on
when
top of-
everybody increases 5%, it's still just a 5% increase overall. So where's the 10% coming that Mr. Smith was referring to?
I own property at the assessed value from the township assessor was equal to last year,
Yeah,
but the state multiplier was 1.105%, so that raised my assessed value 10%. And there's no appeal to that, but people don't know that.
but that doesn't necessarily raise your taxes 10%.
You have to separate
Right.
individual tax situations from the collective.
Right, yes.
And I think you're both right. You can certainly see individual bills rise more than 5%.
Right.
But collectively, your local governments are only going to get 5% annual growth.
But once you get your tax bill, you're not appealing anything, you're done.
Yeah, and that's the process.
You appeal it off
Leading up
the
to that,
assessment.
You work with the chief county assessor.
Right.
And what's the end date for assessments, for appealing?
It's 30 days after you get your notice.
So mine's already passed, for sure.
Okay.
Because I got my notice
Each
in the
township,
summer.
whenever they submit their
Yeah.
things, they sent out the notice and then you get 30 days from
So
whenever
it
that
varies.
notice is.
Okay.
Yes, correct.
Thanks.
We'll make sure that Bob is at the committee level.
Okay, are we ready to go to
Thank you.
7-8?
Thank you very much.
Okay, entertain a motion for item 7-8. Larry? Teresa seconds, Larry pulled this one.
I did. In the resolution, there's no final number, and I'm sure there's a reason for it. I'm not saying I'm against this at all, but there's no final number, and the supporting information was, didn't explain it very well either for me anyway.
So you are correct, there is no final number, because I don't know what that number will be.
Okay.
These are statutorily mandated assessments that have to be completed prior to sentencing.
Have you done this regularly on every year? Because
Yes.
you know you're gonna spend more than $30,000 on this? Okay. And I don't know that this question would be for you then, the award statement. We got Neuroclinic and assessment and the response, let's see, responsive, responsible, yes. But there's nothing, no information about what the other bids were, or is it? And I'm looking at their procurement officer there.
That's fine. It was an RFP, request for proposals, and the purchasing ordinance, hasn't come up for a few years, but it has come up before. The purchasing ordinance keeps the information private until after award, because as you evaluate the RFP, terms and conditions can change. That may raise or lower costs, and we'll get into a perpetual discussion with vendors if you have constant questions. One vendor says, well, yeah, we can do that, or Dan needs something different, and then he would have to go back to every other proposer and say, can you do this for us? Well, yes, but then the next vendor comes back and says, well, if you would have told me about that, I could do that for you at a lower cost. So that also, the purchasing ordinance has it that stays private until after award, and basically, as Dan said, we don't know the cost. It's a judicial order that creates this process, and furthermore, in the purchasing ordinance, judicial orders have special dispensation or special rules that they have to follow, or they're allowed to follow, I should say.
Okay.
I apologize, it's
Yep, no, that's fine.
in the details.
I'm good.
Okay, anyone else? All right, we'll go to vote then. Terry is not here. Larry?
Yes.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Teresa?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much. All right, we're on to item 8, Advance McHenry County. We have 2 items for Advance McHenry County today, one from MCEDC and one pertaining to the Lake County Long Meadow Waterway Bridge. So first up is MCEDC.
Yeah.
You have to introduce yourself for all of our home viewers.
Yes.
You can walk around, it's okay. We're not like, we don't have a jail around us or anything that we gotta.
Some of us should, but we don't.
Oh, whoa.
Across the street, I'm good.
Stand up there.
Ryan, who are you implicating?
Myself,
Okay. Welcome to the jungle.
I'm sorry. Wrong thing. We had lots of fun.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, I am Ed DeVore with the McHenry County EDC, and I have with me James Sitko, who is passing out some reports. And we first want to thank you again for allowing us to come here and talk to you about the modernizing marketing program that we want to implement for the county. In front of you, you have the one-pager, just recap overview of the program, and then you've also got the PowerPoint slides that will just kind of take you through the program that's gone through some reiterations and some updates, and I think ultimately ended up being a much better program than what we've talked to you about in the past. So generally it's the same, but I'll take you through it again, and I would love your input and your thoughts. So again, this is a program that is targeted against is targeted towards smaller businesses in McHenry County, and the rationale behind it really stems from the challenges that the pandemic has caused all businesses, but primarily small businesses. And so our objective is to help the McHenry County businesses basically position themselves to compete in a new environment by accumulating the tools, the proper tools and capabilities that the new marketplace is now demanding and requiring. It's become a very, very difficult, it's always been very difficult and very competitive, but following the pandemic, coming out of the pandemic, it is even more so. So we're looking to provide that support and help. The benefits of the program, and again, stop me at any point if you have any questions or comments. The benefits of the program are where it will enable businesses that go through the program to understand ways and have vehicles to elevate their revenues, their online marketing effectiveness, customer contact engagement, as well as their visibility. The topics that we're going to review in the seminar will be really 4 key areas that we think will be of most value to the small businesses. Explaining why digital marketing is so important going forward, how to best reach your customers and reach the right customers, how to convert your interaction with the customers into sales, which is probably one of the most important things, and then attracting talent. We all know, a lot of small business owners here, we all know how challenging it is to attract and retain talent nowadays. The program summary itself will be a seminar program. So there's 2 parts to it. Let me explain it to you. We're going to have 2 seminars a year. They'll be approximately 4 or 5 months apart. And the program, the entire program will run from 2024 through 2029. However, the first 3 years will be the ARPA funded program, part of it. The following years is designed to be a self-sustaining program. So we have it, what we're presenting to you, it will run through 2029. The seminars are going to be open to all businesses. That was feedback we took back from one of the prior meetings. We think that we should try to reach and touch as many businesses as we can, so that the seminar portion is going to be open to all businesses. And each seminar will be a day long. Each seminar, for each seminar, there will be an additional component to it where
The first 30 businesses that sign up will be eligible for a free on-site 2-hour consulting session, which will basically provide them the opportunity to take what they learned in that seminar and actually apply it and implement it into their business. And we think that's a key component to this program. In each seminar per year, you've got the 2 seminars per year. They'll be both exactly the same seminar. It's not going to be like the next seminar is not going to be like a graduating seminar. So the businesses that come to each seminar will be going through the same program, same content. The first 2 years will have a nominal fee, and then after that, the fee will rise reasonably. In all cases, it's a very good level because it includes, for the 30 businesses, it includes free on-site consultations, and it is also a critical component to the self-sustaining aspect of it. The Academy, and we're coining that term, the McHenry County EDC Academy, because we do see this possibly being a component of the EDC to offer learnings and capability development to the county, to the businesses. And so we see a series of different programs coming out of that, this being obviously the first one. Now, we have set up a set of criteria that we believe will do two primary functions. It'll provide the best fit for the participants, so we'll have the customer or the participants, businesses that most need this type of support and education, and we will also be selecting businesses that are willing to support, what you'll see in a minute, willing to support the Greater McHenry County Leadership Program's train-to-trainer model. We think, again, that is also going to be a critical aspect of the self-sustaining part of it. So some of the criteria will be, we're looking at businesses with annual revenue above $500,000 and fewer than 50 employees. Now those numbers slide left and, they can slide up and down a little bit, but we think the consensus has been that we think that that's the right threshold, if you will. We're also requiring that the businesses at the time of the seminar dates, that the businesses be in business in McHenry County for at least 18 months. Okay, willing to serve as instructors for the future seminars, which is a big part of it, as we mentioned. Provide relevant data back to the organization, back to us, so we can provide results, what worked, what did not work, show the benefits of the program, and so forth. Provide feedback. One of the reasons we wanted to split the 2 seminars out 4 or 5 months is because we want to be able to implement with the learnings from the first seminar into the next seminar. And like I said, they need to be willing to attribute a full day to these seminars. We would really not prefer people just come for 50% of it and then leave, because then you've taken that full opportunity away from another business. So the 30 businesses per seminar, they're going to sign up for the 2-hour session. We'll have to meet, we'll ask that they meet this above criteria. Again, the point is to ensure that we get the best fit for those 2 hours. There is not a criteria to participate in the seminar. Like we said, that is open up to all businesses. And for the first year, just to give you an example, the first year is going to have an admission fee of $99. I think it's very reasonable, it's very much worthwhile, it's a very strong value, we believe, to the businesses attending. The registration period, we'll have that. The registration will be online on the MCEDC website, approximately 45 days prior to the session. The 2 seminars will be promoted at the same time. Well, actually, we're going to be advertised separately. Now that we've moved into 5 months apart, we're going to advertise both of them separately, but again, they will be similar content. And as we talked about the 30 businesses, the ones that qualify per the criteria will receive the free on-site 2 hours consulting session from the digital media company that will be putting on the seminar. We will have the promotion and advertising will be full-fledged promotion where we're using all different mediums. And we're also going to have been engaging local municipality governments and as well as chambers in terms of getting their feedback on what they thought of the program, but also to help amplify our message and advertising of the program. They've been very receptive to this type of a program, and they feel that their businesses will definitely get value out of it. And then as we said, the program promotion and awareness campaign will run for about 60 days prior to the registration. So we'll try to just line up that timing so everybody can be aware of it. There's ample time to make sure all the businesses are aware of what the program is, what it consists of, and then obviously allow them to work it into their schedules, their agendas.
Did you want us to interrupt?
Yeah.
I don't see page numbers, but on the criteria page at the bottom it says there's no criteria set to attend the seminar. And then on the next page, registration is open to all small businesses. Is it? When I see no criteria to attend on one page, it seems like any business could attend.
With the seminars.
With seminars. Okay. And then on the next page, it says registration will be available to small businesses only.
Yeah, that we realized that we wanted to, we're coining this, we're promoting this as a small business program, but that was actually, we wanted to line that out. We don't, you probably should line that out, it's confusing. So
Shooting for small businesses, but anybody could attend if they want to pay the entry fee.
Exactly right, and if you remember, at first we didn't have an entry fee, so we had to have some type of a screening process and so forth. Now with an entry fee, we can open it up, because again, we had to ensure that we had a vehicle in place to drive the sustainability of the program.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I
Yeah, no, that's a good tip.
To follow up with that, if you go to the page before that, it says the annual revenue is over 500,000 and 5,400 employees.
That's for the 2 hour.
For the 2
2 hours.
Okay.
We have to, there has to be some limiting factor in that, simply because it's being provided free of charge, and so we can provide so many of them, but we can't have an unlimited amount of them. Now we can consider a component to that says if we go beyond that, is there a nominal fee for that? And we can work that out with the company, but we can't leave that. Okay. Now we can change. We can take those first 2 out and still keep the rest of the criteria. If we need to do it, yeah. But we do have to have some kind of limiting factor. And then, as I mentioned, the sustainability functions will be factors will really be the fees that we're charging, the train-to-trainer after the first couple of years, the consultant-paid seminars will become train-to-trainer seminars, so there will be no cost. So that frees up some cash. The nominal fee, and then we have had, I mentioned this earlier to you, we have had a number of conversations with different municipalities where they see this as an opportunity to provide a scholarship or pay for some of their businesses to attend this. So we haven't worked that component into the sustainability financials, because that would just be something over and above, but that's another way we think we can engage the local communities and drive the sustainability. One of the things that we want to do is make sure that there's accountability to the program, and that it's constantly being looked at as how do we maintain its sustainability and how do we continue to drive value. So we're looking at developing an advisory team, which would be made up primarily of EDC members, and the terms would be roughly 3 years. But we just feel that's a way to bring accountability, oversight, counsel, analysis to the program. And then I just broke out a tentative timeline on how it would break out. We don't know exactly when we would start this program. It would be in early next year, obviously, but this is just a timeline for the first and then the second seminar. And then page 8, the next page, just breaks out these financials. You've seen these before, so these haven't changed other than the added impact from a sustainability performance. So you can see where, I won't go through all of these numbers, but you can see where we change the consultant involvement in the seminars from 25 to 26. 2025 will be a hybrid, meaning we don't want to just have a hard stop and then start with the train-to-trainer model. So we want to do a hybrid in 25, and then in 26 it would be all train-to-trainer model. Train-to-trainer model. We've got broken out the expenses and budgets for promotion and awareness, lunch, obviously, building content, and all of these you will see that we looked at them and to see that year on year, for example, with content is going to be relatively the same year on year, so we should be able to decrease costs going forward. The big one is in year one, and then it comes down. In 2027, you see that the costs come up a little bit to prior year. That's simply due to we feel that there'll be a refresh to some extent, but not nearly what it was in year one. But there will be a refresh in some of these line items required. Okay. You can see the admission fee goes from 99 to no higher than $4.99 in the last year. And we think that as the program develops and evolves, it will be well worth that admission fee. And again, there's tools in place to help that cost be defrayed to some businesses. The ARPA funding goes through 2026, and then that's when the program becomes self-generating, and even has an opportunity to be to drive some significant revenues that can be plowed back into the program. Any questions on the financials?
So you think you'd get about 500 people per seminar? I'm doing this because I'm looking at your materials cost and divide. I'm like, oh, you're thinking you're getting 500 people per seminar.
No, the number of total participants is the estimate. Now, and it's an estimate. And if we open it up, if we're going to open it up to everybody, it's hard to plug exactly what that number is going to be. I think these are conservative numbers, though. So in year one, it's 75, and grow to 100, 125, 150, 175, and 200. It's about 800 businesses over that time period. But again, I think those are conservative.
It's a moot point about the small cost. The materials and lunch cost then is like too high for 75 people. But
Which costs?
I mean, this is a moot point. It's only like so if it's $3 for materials and $3.30 for lunch and snacks per participant.
$3,000 for materials, and then lunch and snacks would be.
Oh, you're talking about that. Oh, okay.
And that's again, it could be a little bit less, a little bit more. But does that answer the question?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, well, we're done now.
Are you done? Is it time for questions yet?
Yeah, and the last page is just a recap of what I just basically explained to you. So, yeah, open to questions.
I just wanted, so how many small businesses are there in McHenry?
Upwards of 5,000.
Yeah,
Small business.
yeah, small businesses around 5,000.
Does that include like home-based businesses too?
Home-based?
Well, you think
I would,
of like the Mary Kay or, I just wanted, does that include those?
I would doubt it.
Okay.
Yeah.
5,000, all right. So, I think it's very important that we, aim to help our small businesses. They're the core of our community, so I like this program. Just wondering, so will you guys need to hire more employees for this program?
Well, that's a bigger question. So right now, as you know, we're down a head or two. I suspect, from my understanding, and Mike, feel free, Chairman, to speak to this, but I'd like to think that we'll be full staffed by the time this program is being implemented. I've been talking with the digital agency, so they're aware of it. They've been keeping it, as soon as they get the green light, they can start working on it, but they know it's coming, hopefully. So I think the amount of people that we're going to put on, when I say fully staffed, That's going to be fully staffed for the EDC. It's not going to be incrementally beyond that for this program.
Okay, all right. And then, we know you're looking for a new director, so do you think hiring a new director will affect the program at all, or hopefully they'll just have buy-in when you...
If it impacts it, it'll be a plus. It'll be to the positive.
Okay, that's all I have, thank you.
Any other members have questions? No?
Yeah, I guess, so who, I'm sorry, I just was trying to formulate it. Kelly's question about more staff, and so you have people on staff that'll be doing these seminars?
We will, but keep in mind too that for like conducting the seminars, that will be train-to-trainer models. So we'll be using alumni from the prior seminars to train the future seminars.
The initial seminar will be done by a consultant or an outside company to do that.
Okay.
So it's not, so they're not actual staff members of MCEDC, they're contracted.
Someone that's specialized in that, that's what I was looking for the answer on that. Yep, okay. That part. Yes, thanks.
Anything else? Okay. Consensus of the committee to move this to the board? Yeah, okay. All right, I mean, we have to move the resolution, but for right now, I just want the consensus.
Or consent for the whole cost? Is that what you're looking for us to say, yes, we approve the whole cost?
Well, we have to approve the resolution, so once we hear the second one, then we're gonna go to the resolution.
What about costs? Okay.
But yeah, this cost is $225,000.
Over 3 years.
Over 3 years. So if you have concerns about that or questions about
Well,
that.
I mean, I guess I'm kind of deferring to the business owners on our committee to educate me about, they see this as a great, like, I'm not of the, looking in, I foresee in the future, I was looking back and looking at where can we allocate funds that we don't have allocated yet. And of the programs, this isn't a program that I'm as excited about as I would be other opportunities. But perhaps I am not, don't have the experience to realize the value of this program. So I was looking around realizing that a number of you are business owners and would have more insight as to the value of the program.
I personally, I wouldn't consider myself a small business owner, but as a business owner, to me, these are areas that as an owner, I don't have time to delve into and really understand. And as a business owner, you spend so much time in the business, as the cliche goes, you don't spend any time working, on the business. And to me, this is working on the business. This is setting yourself up to be successful going forward. And so even as a business owner, if I chose not to go to these seminars because I'm so busy involved in the business, I could designate one of my employees to go that then I could then put responsibly and in charge of helping not only to grow, but get these questions answered. Because as we all know, the world's kind of going to a more digital and online focus. And a lot of companies just have no clue. I mean, that's why I hire IT people, because I have no flipping clue. I don't know what I'm doing. I mean, I know what my customers want, but how do I get that out in front of my customers? How do I get them interested in what I have to offer? And to me, especially retail businesses that are struggling, bricks and mortar is not a thing anymore. I mean, or it's going away. So, to me, how do you get that online presence in order to get in front of customers? And so to me, this is important to the businesses that are just starting up, the businesses that may be working out of their basement / garage / someone's shed on their property, that we probably don't even know about, I mean, and to me, this is a way that we can help those small businesses.
But they would not be, eligible for the on-site training.
No, I think they would.
I was wondering if the $500,000 minimum revenue was going to be a burden, like was like the wrong direction, like.
Well, to me, we had to come up with something, so
Right.
that was what we came up with. I think if you start looking at when you have the free seminars that you're giving, the
Right.
all-day things, and you start looking at the criteria by which who's going to those, and suddenly you realize that there's a whole bunch of businesses that are at $200,000 in annual revenues, well then naturally I think that needs to be adjusted, and I think you have the autonomy to be able to change that and not make that a hard fast thing. So the online application for the 30 businesses changes based on who's actually going to the free, anyone can attend type things. I mean, the focus is to help the businesses, and I think.
Right, I felt like maybe $500,000 was like too high.
And it may be, right?
It's not too high?
It's a top line number, it's not net profit.
Yeah, it's revenues,
Yeah,
correct.
it's top,
Okay.
that's skinny little margins there.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, that's less than 50,000, that's 42,000 a month in sales. I don't know, I mean, that's 10,000 a week. Is that good, bad, indifferent? I mean, I don't know.
I guess it depends on what kind of business we're looking at. The people I know who have small businesses have really small businesses.
Well,
Right.
and your
And so
point-
they're like they have only 3 employees, right? So they're definitely less than 50 employees, but they don't, I don't know. I mean, that's why I said that those of you who have more experience with the businesses in the county would have better insight.
Carol?
Yeah, well, I think, so what I'm understanding a little bit is getting back feedback. This is something that could potentially be addressed, I would think, after the first round.
Yeah.
And depending on what kinds of businesses are actually stepping up or wanting to get involved in the program, and maybe that gets adjusted. I think there needs to be some built-in flexibility to make sure that the program is actually serving the needs of the
That's exactly right.
businesses that are seeking it. And I think what we really did find coming out of COVID was that small businesses really were hurt, especially those that did not have an online presence. And not only that, as we started to recover, many of them, and I'm not saying all of them, but many of them did not then take that experience and start to build a digital or online presence, largely because they're spending their time just trying to run the business, not on how the business is operating, or whatever the terms are. But and that's a vulnerability for our small businesses in our community, which is a vulnerability for our economic activity in this county as a whole. So helping to address that, I think, is very important. We've had them come back several times. This is an extremely detailed proposal. I think the model is great, and I think it will, I'm excited to see us provide that service to our small businesses. I appreciate the proposal.
Thank you, Ken. But the essence of your point is a good point. And that's why I think it was a good move. I think it was the chairman's recommendation to separate. Originally, we were going to have this seminars kind of 6 weeks apart. We were separating and pushing them out a little bit because we do want to be able to take the learnings. There's going to be, I mean, we don't, you ask 10 different people, what's a small business, you're going to get 10 different answers.
Right.
This will help us identify that, I guess, but we will adjust accordingly based on the needs of the audience. So, but there's a start point.
And at the same time, real quick if I may, the number being, at 500K, we're not married to it obviously, but you want to have small businesses, but you don't want to have too small to where their impact isn't as large through the program. Like you want this to have the largest impact on the largest amount of people, employees, whatever it possibly can, but still remain in that small business definition.
And I think that what would happen in a program like this is that it's going to respond to technological changes. For example, you may start out this way, but probably 12 to 18 months into it, you're going to be using artificial intelligence to start dictating what people, but if they don't know what that is, if they don't know that it's available today, but if you don't know what that is and how to access it and use it in these areas, so there's just going to be a lot of changes. And if people are not able to grasp and enhance using technology, they will highly unlikely be able to compete in the marketplace 2 and 3 years out. It's just so fast. So I think it's a nice launch, and I do see it enhancing itself in just response, and then just the intellectual property that will be involved in the program. So.
Anything else? Okay. Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next, we have the Long Meadow Parkway Bridge.
So then we'll be voting on both of those together then?
Yeah, because it's all in one resolution, so we'll hear this presentation and then we'll pass the resolution.
With respect, I have to leave at 10:30.
Okay.
This one's simpler.
Yeah, we committed to 10:42.
Haven't you already?
All right.
We'll be snapped. I want to introduce Tom Rickard. Tom is the Assistant Director of Transportation at Kane County Department of Division of Transportation.
Thanks for coming up.
Oh, you're
It's much beautifer up north here now.
You did it on short notice because I talked with Chairman Scala and Chairman Bueller last week. We said, let's go ahead and move ahead on this if we're bringing the EDC one forward. So Tom, I appreciate you and adjusting your schedule. Maybe about 10 months ago, in February of last year, Chairwoman Corinne Pirog called me and kind of said, hey, what if, we were able to move on eliminating the tolls on Long Meadow Parkway? The Long Meadow Parkway was always assumed to be a toll bridge, and they were expensive tolls. Many of those tolls are paid for by McHenry County residents. And she said, well, the state, Representative Ness, Senator DeWitt, we're trying to cobble together some monies that we could have moved to eliminate the tolls. And the state came up with $30 million, and the thought process is that if McHenry could come up with $1 million, we could eliminate those tolls, and the ROI on that is, about 3 years, and we've saved McHenry County residents from tolling. I expressed to Chairwoman Pirog, I thought that was pretty attractive, and we talked some with Chairman Scala, Chairman Bueller back in March, and if this comes free, I think we could probably support that. All the while hoping that the state could come up with more than 30 million and we wouldn't even need to have this conversation. We wait, like everything else, you wait till the end of May and General Assembly activity, and it didn't come to be, and kind of was quiet over the summer. Chairwoman Pirog came up in September and met personally with Chairman Bueller and kind of more formally made the request. And of course, what were we doing in September? We're building our own budget, and these numbers weren't critical for that, so we kind of wanted to delay the discussion, but it's not time now to have the discussion. We've kind of always imagined that this would likely be supported, so we kind of had parked $1 million in our Advanced McHenry County monies for this, should you make the decision to make the allocation. But it's here now, and I probably talked already too much, Tom, but you can talk a little bit more about what's anticipated and some of the timing.
Yeah, excuse me. I wanted to first of all just say thank you to McHenry County Board. We've been partners in this project since the 1990s when when the Bridge Advisory Committee looked at 22 bridge corridors from southern McHenry County all the way into Kendall County. And ultimately, the corridor for the McHenry-Kane border was chosen as Long Meadow. And so 30 years worth of work has been going into this. Through McHenry County's resolutions back in around 2001, McHenry County, as well as 10 municipalities in McHenry and Kane, recommended that we move towards a toll facility in order to make it happen sooner rather than later. And so the county board, Kane County Board, went forward with making a toll bridge, and we also made a commitment, a promise that we would do our best to find additional state and federal funds to bring down the toll rate and to possibly even get rid of the toll. And that commitment we've been working on for 20 years now, just trying to figure out ways to get rid of the toll. In the last year, as Pete was mentioning, a plan was orchestrated to come up with some funding, and our state representatives came up with $30 million. There's a $17.5 million allotment that we're currently working on right now. We should receive those funds around March timeframe, and then there's an additional $12.5 million that will probably be a couple years from now. So all of this is coming to fruition. The bridge corridor is a $180 million bridge corridor, and it's almost done. I think we have a $3 million segment, the length of 2 football fields in between the sand wall and the Fox River Bridge and what we call the Bowles Road Connector. That construction will happen next year, next spring and summer, and the corridor will be complete. Our efforts, again, we're working with DCEO through the monies that our state representatives were able to allot towards the toll elimination effort. We're working towards that and trying to follow through with all the various commitments. And again, our county board has been very appreciative to all of our efforts working together. If it wasn't for McHenry and Kane working together on this, we wouldn't have received all the additional state and federal dollars that we received in order to make this happen. $180 million bridge project, that's pretty difficult to come by those revenue sources. So again, thank you for this board and all your efforts in assisting us. This is kind of our last hurdle in order to follow through with what we said to Representative Ness and our other area legislators, that we would bring together some of the local commitments and follow through with that. And our hope is, if you looked at the memo I created for your packet, there is already a 10-foot by 20-foot sign over Long Meadow Parkway that says this is the toll rate, etc. Our hope is in March we'll be able to take that down and have some type of celebration, and so that's the goal.
Ceremonial sign removal.
On a sledgehammer instead of shovels.
Exactly. So a lot of effort's gone into actually bringing it to this point where it looks pretty close to getting rid of the toll. So.
Questions? Teresa?
How does this fit into how it's an ARPA need?
Infrastructure.
I think there's some questions about because you can't use ARPA dollars to pay off debt, right? So there may be some manipulation on the $1 million in order to be able to give Kane County the $1 million and still fit into ARPA guidelines. And we haven't figured that out yet.
Right, which is what makes me nervous, is that I'm for contributing our $1 million, but I'm not sure it's ARPA money. That's my concern.
So we would be designating ARPA dollars to the program. I think how that looks needs to be determined still. And so for me, it would be more of is the board committed to giving $1 million to the process of the bridge? How logistically we work that out so we're meeting ARPA guidelines, I think has yet to be determined, and we would have to determine that. That's my answer to you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't love that answer, and I guess that's the problem. Is that I do think, yes, we should put our $1 million in, but this feels like maybe a capital budget issue, not an ARPA budget.
Well, it's no different than when we did capital projects. So we funded, all the capital projects for Cary and for McHenry and all that. You can use ARPA dollars for capital projects, but they have to go to spend to pay for those projects. I can't go it to pay his debt.
Right, and that's right.
And there is still capital aspects to the project for over the next year, as well as maintenance stuff so there's ongoing stuff that's outside of the bond debt service.
Tom and I had the conversation before the meeting. He committed that he can find some non-debt uses for our
Right. That's what it would have to be. So I'm not gonna give them $1 million and then have the government come back and say,
take it back, right, yes,
right. So
yes.
I'm gonna make sure that not only are we compliant, but Bronner agrees that we're compliant with the guidelines. So we gotta work that segment out to make sure that we're doing it properly.
I mean, I don't have anything more. I'll defer to the rest of the committee, yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I just want to
Carolyn.
build on that, so that if that is the case and Bronner comes back and says no for some reason, then are we coming back forward with another resolution for the straight $1 million? And when is the time frame for wanting to get this done?
I believe King County, you need the money around March or April, right?
Yeah, right now we're shooting hopefully to have the DCO funds in March.
Okay, so is there an issue with us bringing these two ARPA resolutions as one, requests as one? I
We
mean,
brought all of our ARPA resolutions on a single.
thing before.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not so worried about
So you
that.
don't think it's gonna be?
No, we can easily find, I mean, because it's not done being built yet, so I mean,
Right.
there's still
There's still gonna be
construction
construction
costs.
dollars,
Correct.
sure, yeah.
So that's why I'm not worried about us figuring it out. I want to make sure we're fully compliant and that takes precedence over how that, To me, the question right now is, do we want to give $1 million from ARPA to Kane County for this project? And if the answer is yes, then great, we move forward and that's fine. Go ahead.
So I just want to commend Kane County on not increasing your tax levy. Thank you. That was great. And then also I really appreciate this effort to not have increased use taxes on the residents and the constituents using that bridge. And my understanding is that this could come from ARPA interest, so that gives us more flexibility. And I am very much in favor of putting this on the resolution and seeing it passed now so that we can make planning and move ahead.
And Rena, you're exactly correct. This could easily come from ARPA interest if we ran into any roadblocks.
Right.
That would prohibit us from using that interest in some other manner, but you're right.
But I'd rather make it ARPA interest now than you, right? Because
We have to be in compliance,
right, but I mean, so using ARPA interest is not the same as using ARPA funds. So your recommendation to use ARPA interest, I like better than using ARPA funds.
Let me counter argument there.
Sure.
If you use ARPA interest, we aren't going to be able to use ARPA interest on some other capital project to assist us in keeping our property taxes low or flat as possible next year, right? Because that ARPA interest, we can use whatever we want. And then we still have another $1 million to give away to the community, because we will not have given it to our residents who would be paying tolls.
True, but we have $1 million in infrastructure projects that we could allocate when next time we do an allocation, when we do the review of our projects that
Well, again, I don't,
That's a policy decision. but
Right.
You understand, you're taking $1 million that we can use on whatever we want when we
Yeah.
build a fiscal 25's budget.
to me, I think if we run into a roadblock that we can't do it, then I think staff's gonna come back to the board and say, hey, we thought we could do this, Browner won't agree to it, and there's a problem, and this is how we're suggesting to do it, which is maybe the interest. It doesn't really matter, but to me, it still comes back to the $1 million. Are we dedicated to giving them $1 million? And if so, work out the back end on how to figure that out. And if what we believe we can't do because Browner disagrees, or there's, guidance from the Treasury that says we can't do that, then we're not gonna risk it. We're gonna come back to the board and have another discussion. Okay, anything else? Okay, thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Glad you were able to come up north.
Yes, it was a great drive. I don't get up here too often.
Okay, so item 8.1 then is the resolution that has these two items on it. So I'll entertain a motion to approve item 8.1. Terry and Brian, any other discussion? If not, we'll go to vote then. Larry? Yes. Carolyn?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Teresa?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Okay, motion carries. We're on to item 8.2.
With apologies, but I didn't.
That's fine. I'll entertain a motion to approve item 8.2.
So moved.
Larry
A second.
and Kelly seconds. Is there any discussion on item 8.2?
Well, I'd like to keep a better eye on what we're gonna do after 2026. Right, so we're using our interest to pay an ongoing expense. That we don't have a plan for. Like we're
8.2.
What's up? Isn't Neighborly gonna be an ongoing expense in 27? Won't we still?
Not for ARPA.
Not, I know not for ARPA, right.
CDBG uses it and they have their own funding.
They're gonna fund it. We think they're gonna fund it starting in 27.
They were funding it.
They fund
previously.
it now for their licenses.
Yeah.
And they had some additional admin money that were funding ARPA licenses, but that funding is gone. So we need our 3 ARPA licenses until ARPA's over, and then it will go away.
So, okay.
I mean, Neighborly won't go away, but CDBG has that covered.
Okay.
We've been using that software for the application process for the years. That will go away.
Yes.
And Melissa will talk with you next, I think, Board of Health is imagining using it for their smaller versions.
Okay.
But again, it'll go away when the programs go.
Anything else on 8.2? Larry?
So just so I'm clear then, CDBG is using, I've on that committee used administrative funds for funding some organizations, but this will pay for the Neighborly for now. And then in 3 years, CDBG will go back to using administrative fees to pay for it?
So we're looking at per license. I'm not sure how many licenses CDBG has,
Okay,
but they were including
Okay.
our 3 license.
the extra people that are there for the
Yes.
ARPA stuff?
So in 26, our 3 will drop off and they'll continue to use their funding.
They had it, we made it bigger, and then it'll go
Yeah.
back down.
Okay.
So,
So it's directly.
Right, it is directly related. Fantastic.
It is directly.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else?
More so than most things we do.
Yes, exactly. Yes, that's my concern.
Stretch it.
Yeah. I've committed to myself that this year I'm gonna really pay attention to how we're using this interest so that we're thinking about 2026. So I'm thinking more about 2026 as we, that's my commitment this year. To really think hard about the income interest, what is sustainable.
All right,
So-
anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay, go to vote on 8.2 then. Carolyn?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Teresa?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Motion carries. All right, we are on to item 10, discussions. 10.1. Hey, welcome.
Hi.
So last month, we talked a lot about the potential for an IGA with Lake County on inmate detention. Just want a little update today, because we don't have any really groundbreaking facilities.
We not only did we have discussions, we actually.
Yeah, we voted on it, you're right, you're right. Friday night, I got a call from Lake County Administrator, as I'd asked to give me an update, and he told me that the IGA was not going to be on the committee round for Lake County this week, which means effectively the Lake County Board is delaying the discussion by another month. There is, and I talked with the county administrator yesterday for the update. Not really, but there does seem to be an understanding that the Lake County Sheriff may be moving ahead regardless of the Lake County Board, using his authority as an elected official. And I think Sheriff Titleman is kind of expecting that at this point. We're going to work through the contract language to see what maybe needs to be modified, or if it's not a traditional IGA, if it's an agreement with the Lake County Sheriff or between the sheriffs. We're going to work on that. There's a lot of politics going on in Waukegan right now, and we could probably leave it there, but there's some strong-willed elected officials and there's issues that are kind of layering on top of each other. It's not all about the county board and Lake County accepting this agreement, but there's other pieces at play, and I don't want to get into all that, but there's other agreements that want to happen, and kind of one is being leveraged for the other. I think it may all take care of itself in another 30, 60 days, but meanwhile, I do think that the Lake County Sheriff may be moving ahead, and we're going to be positioning ourselves to respond to that.
Correct. Anything else you want to add? Nope, okay.
We appreciate the relationship that the Sheriff's Office has with our elected county officials.
We're reminded how lucky we are.
Oh, there you go.
Yes.
Okay. Any other committee questions? Nope.
I think just as eyes wide open, the Sheriff's Office in Lake County has a lot of money, millions of dollars for contractual services. They may or may not have enough to get them through a 12-month span, absent some cooperation with the Lake County Board. So we have to be aware that there's only so much money that the sheriff can access without a partnership with the county board there. So that's probably the most important thing we need to know as we enter into this next round.
Do we then foresee, so let's say Lake County doesn't ever fund it, they're in a power struggle. And now we have some of their inmates, and now they're not gonna pay for them anymore. Do we see that as a problem then, and what are we gonna do about that?
So that's a good question. We would see that ahead of time because the billing is on a monthly basis.
Right.
And we know what their budget kind of is. And honestly, the sheriff's office is hoping that if we have to do a side agreement, that that's not gonna be a long-term agreement, that eventually the county board will sign on to an agreement with McHenry County.
Because I guess the question then is
It will take
for,
less than a day to bring all inmates back.
right, I guess that's a question that maybe I can just ask.
The bus train.
Sheriff Kettleman,
Truly,
later,
I mean, that
is
would
his
be
intention,
unfortunate,
would his intention be to just bust them right back to Lake County and let Lake County deal with people they can't take care of? Or would we feel like a humanity issue that we need to take care of people because they're humans?
Well, of course, we would have the humanity to work with Lake County and their inmates. Depending on when we can start accepting inmates, they should have a good amount of money for us to take a good amount of inmates for this year. And hopefully, they're doing what they need to do staff-wise, so those numbers can go down. I know it's difficult, it's very challenging out there for them, but they're also working on that, so.
We're trying to do
We're not
them a
gonna put
favor,
anyone
so,
in
I
an
mean,
unsafe situation.
Right, I guess how long, so, okay.
It depends. It depends.
Right, well, I guess we'll worry about
If it's
this towards the
50
end of the year. Towards the end of the year, when we see how it's going, then there's a rethink of what our policy will be.
Yeah, we intend on updating, well, my liaison committee is law and government. So once this goes into effect, and if we do have inmates, we intend on updating the committees with reports, financial reports.
Okay. All right, that's it for 10.1. 10.2, building sale.
So we want to update, let me add
Yes, do you want me to have?
a year ago, or over, I guess, less than a year ago, when we made the Advanced McHenry County commitment to the Housing Authority to find a new home. I don't remember, can you refresh me on the numbers? How did that go down?
On the purchase of the building?
Well, yeah, you ended up buying a building that was a little bit more than we anticipated. The thought all along is we were going to get the proceeds from the sale of their building.
Yep. So I actually have a spreadsheet that has it kind of laid out with the original thing that I got from Kevin when we set this up in the grant. So we found a building and it ended up, we ended up having to go up $100,000 in our offer. Or we weren't going to get the building. And so I reached out to Kevin and he said, that's fine, these are estimates that there was no building when we came forward or any.
We approved an idea,
Right,
which manifested itself in a beautiful building in Crystal Lake, and now we're just trying to tie this all out.
Tie this all out.
We had to account for every nickel.
Absolutely, absolutely. So hopefully with this, I have done that, and then obviously any questions that you have. Let's see what.
Well, what the reason why we're talking about this today is, so originally it was supposed to be a loan from the general fund of $350. And then because of the cost of the building, it went from $350 to $450. And that loan from the general fund was supposed to be paid with the proceeds from the sale of the building. So the sale of the building was $385 roughly, correct?
The sales price was $415, but when you subtract the closing costs for the building, it comes out to $378,850. So the amount of proceeds over the $350 was $28,850. However, our construction estimate was $230, and the construction basic construction ended up to $79.19. which was 49,000 over the estimated cost of the construction. And then if you click on that other sheet, the sheet to the left, the construction cost, total construction cost, yeah, that's all of our costs. We are, you know, just to make the move and make it operational, but the only cost that I'm talking about is for construction costs as far as the county goes is the 254,419 and then the 24,700 for the architectural. The other costs are just additional costs that we had. So it all came in all over 100 grand for the housing authority to cover. So it was my impression that because the construction costs ran over, that could go to that project. And there seems to be the question.
Yeah, so currently on the books, the county has a loan of 100,000 that hasn't been satisfied. And so the question is from Carrie to the committee, what are we doing with that loan? Are we just writing it off as bad debt? Are we asking them to pay a part of it, or are we asking them to pay all of it? So that's why Carrie's here, because she needs some direction on what to do.
What's the ability to pay it back? What's the ability to pay it back?
Very little, considering we've already put 100 in additional, you know, up to the project. So, and that's not the problem with that 100 is that's not how we moved forward with purchasing the building. We were under the impression the 100 was just going to be part of the grant, and that, and so because my board didn't vote to pay 100,000 more to purchase the building because it was coming out of the ARPA funds, was our understanding. So I would have to go to my board, we would have to look at this and how we would do that.
Well, but there's two different components of this. There was the ARPA dollars, which our board voted on and awarded. And then there was the subsequent loan that we gave you so that you could theoretically go out and purchase the building. So we have two different components. The ARPA dollars is gone and done, and that's clean and no big issue. It's the loan component that is the issue right now. And going from 350 to 450 was something that was talked about, but there wasn't any formal paperwork.
And I think that's the challenge, because if you look at this
We
memo.
didn't know how much the building was going to sell for.
Right.
We knew that at some point there would be a building sale that we could factor into that last.
Because I went back and listened to the meetings where this was discussed, and I think the issue was there was no hard numbers. Like, what are you going to buy the building for? What are you going to sell your building for? So it was kind of agreed like in concept, but there was no discussion of.
We want to support the housing.
Yes. There was no discussion about, you know, what if the building proceeds are less? You know, and it does kind of say in here the net difference will be transferred, but that was not discussed either, so.
It's just very uncomfortable for Carrie and I to make a decision.
Yeah.
Okay, this is how generous the county was to be. That's not our role, and we want to just present the facts.
Well, and the only other point that I'll raise is that the net proceeds from the building weren't 100% transferred.
Yes, correct.
So what was transferred was something less than the actual net proceeds.
What were the net proceeds?
350 was
Yeah.
transferred.
So 350 was transferred, and the net proceeds was 378.
So I don't think we understood that the 100,000 was going to be an additional part to a loan. We were probably thinking that it was all the ARPA, you know, it's very confusing how this went down, that it was part of the ARPA grant. So I don't think that was something that wasn't made clear to us.
Well, yeah, go ahead, Larry.
It seems a little strange that we would just forgive a loan. But I don't think that doesn't look good. Can we increase the ARPA grant and then that money gets paid back to the county. Or a different ARPA grant.
Well, so
So we can decide to transfer the difference from ARPA to the general fund, if that's your,
And pay our loan back from ARPA.
yes.
If we're not allowed to do it.
Does it look or more correct to give the housing authority an increase in the ARPA funds?
Well, it would just
And
be-
then have them pay that back to the general fund?
Instead of 497 for the building purchase from ARPA, it would be 597.
Which way is more correct and more, I hate the transparent word.
I think it would be better to have ARPA pay back the general fund versus running it through the housing. Is that what you're meaning? Running it through the housing authority?
Yeah, I mean, that's where the loan went, right, to the housing authority. And that's where the loan's not getting paid back from,
Right.
probably, apparently. So, I'm dropping this on you because
Well, I think because of what it says in this memo about the net proceeds from the sale, unknown amount would be returned to the general fund. The net difference would be transferred from the ARPA fund.
Can I ask, what day was, what, you're reading from what meeting notes?
May 10th of '22. And the original discussion for the resolution was March of '22. I know I had to go back.
I was thinking it was last spring, it was 2 years ago.
Yeah, but with that being said, that sounds like that's would be the proper, correct way to do it then.
well,
It does say on my sheet, on the 567,500 direct expense and ARPA funds revenue loss on that original sheet. Yeah, I think that's where I'm confused on, well, how much was the allotment? I mean, we absolutely did not understand that to be the case, that we would have to pay the difference, that 100,000 back.
well, I guess my issue is because the documents show that the net proceeds from the sale were supposed to come back to the county, and that didn't happen. So to me, that should have happened because that's what the document said. I think the difference between the 450 and the 378, I think that's where there's some ambiguity, and that's where I feel like the committee should weigh in on what to do. But the difference between the 350 and 378, 850, I think that was pretty clear that that's what was supposed to have happened.
So the 28,000.
28,850 and 40 cents theoretically should have come when the building was sold.
Okay. And we can do that. The county, we can do that, write the check for the 28,000.
Okay. I think for the committee, what do we do with the balance of that? And if, I agree using ARPA dollars, but I think, Carrie, to be honest with you, I think in order for that to happen, I know it could be done internally as far as paperwork goes, but for audit purposes, I don't know that I feel comfortable with that.
Right, the ARPA audit? Yes.
Well, not only that, but Baker Tilly's audit. I mean, to me, I'd rather see the board vote on a distribution of dollars going, whatever that money is, going to them, and then that award is made, and they, in turn, go back and pay back that loan.
Is there any way we can rewrite the resolution and re-adopt it with the known numbers now?
Either way, I mean, yes, you could do that too. I mean, either way, that's just the vehicle that you could use to do it. But to me, that is a more succinct and clear trail of paperwork that then accomplishes the same objective. Because you could do journal entries, right? But to me, I don't feel comfortable with journal entries because then there is no action by the board that actually did something.
Well, we would need an action by the board to transfer the ARPA funds to the general fund.
Put that all together.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's.
We don't know if we should, right, because it does seem like weird bookkeeping. It seems like it should be questioned by an auditor as to why are we not paying ourselves back money?
Well, I mean, I guess you guys have the authority of the board to.
Yeah, we would, but I feel like if that's the avenue that the committee wants to recommend to the full board to do, to me, whether we use the old resolution and modify it and say, now this is a modified resolution that needs to be altered, or we have a brand new resolution, I don't really care.
But it's a resolution we're changing from, I'm trying to do the math, 3 minus 21 months ago, right? That's a resolution we did 21 months ago. And now we want to change, that looks just messy. I mean, it looks terribly, it doesn't look, I don't think it looks good. It's a bad look, I think. They go back and change a resolution from 21 months ago and say, we meant to give ourselves this money.
Well, I think you could
No,
modify.
we don't change that when we do a new one.
I think it clarifies it.
We had understanding, we understood there was unknowns
Yeah.
22 months
Yeah,
ago.
we do a new one, we can't change.
Now we're.
Well, I guess I would like to look at the resolution as it was written. I'll have to look back. I have to look back, how was the resolution written back in March? And was it for the April meeting or was it for?
March
Or
is
the May meeting.
when March is when the resolution went through to approve the concept of them finding a building.
Yeah.
And then the general fund giving them a loan to bridge sale of their building and
Yeah.
buying the new one. And then May is when this memo, Kevin brought this memo back saying they found a building, it's more expensive, and this is what we're gonna do.
What meeting went to the county board approve anything?
March of '22 was the resolution.
So it was April.
I gave you one.
So they approved it in.
I have the resolution on the back.
Oh.
So that was March of '22.
Oh, okay.
And then May of '22 is the memo. That was, it was, I think, under the CFO comments of Finance and Audit.
So it would have been better if we had modified this resolution in May of '22.
Well, we still didn't know the sale of the
Oh.
old building until August of this year.
So I guess here's the question for the committee. We have $71,149.60 that is unresolved. Is the committee comfortable with recommending to the full board that we use ARPA dollars to cover the $71,149.60? Is that
Just
what?
an expansion of the original intent.
Correct.
I am, because the intent of the original was to cover the cost, it wasn't.
Okay. Does everyone else agree with that?
I'm with that.
Okay.
As long as we're clear on everything.
Yep. Okay, so then I personally feel like it should be a different new resolution that the board takes action on.
Okay.
And that, we're gonna distribute that to them. They're gonna then turn around and write a check to pay off our debt.
Okay.
So
I know it's a lot of extra paperwork,
No,
but
it's, okay. It's just,
So would that make that it would become part of the grant? It would go from 567.5 to 657.5? Is that?
I'm not doing the math, but
Okay. 'Cause it's
Are you adding 100?
I'm adding 100, right, into the
Why won't we
grant.
just be adding these 7?
you'd be adding 71, so you're still gonna pay the 850.40 that's different from the sale
Okay.
that should have happened already, but it didn't. So whether you wanna wait and just cut one check for 100,000 complete and both of them, that's fine with me.
Okay. I'll talk to the accountant, because this will be messy on our side as well. The books are closed on this, so, and how we, because we didn't book it as a loan, we booked it as a grant, so.
Okay.
That's gonna be a different discussion, and I'll have to talk to our auditors on it, because it's closed.
Okay. I mean, we currently have it on our books as a debt. So that's, we'll just, once we receive payment, then that'll come off as a journal entry that we receive payment. So I guess is it okay with the committee if we add that to the resolution that we passed for the 2 other ARPA grants and just have that be a third one on that same resolution. Go ahead.
It sounds like we have different numbers. So the original resolution from March of 22 said 467,500. We then gave them an extra $100, so it should be 567,500.
Correct.
Right, but I thought you just said a different number than 567.
No,
567.5, well, that's what I have here on the sheet from Kevin. That's the direct expense from the ARPA fund, is 567,500 on my spreadsheet from Kevin. So I don't even have a loan on here, so that's where the confusion is. That's with the additional 100.
Yeah, all right, so, okay,
so
now that's right, now that matches up, yes. $100,000 added to what was in March of 22 is 567,500.
Yeah, but that's not what we're saying to do.
Right, 78.
We're saying to do, we're saying to change it to $538,649.60.
I'd like to see them stay separate because this is cleaning up previous housekeeping versus these other projects that are new.
And that's fine.
You want to wait a month?
No, I don't think we need to, I mean, we can wait a month, but I'd rather get this resolved now than.
New and unfinished.
Yeah, you can put on new and unfinished, that's fine with me.
I'll
Just get
send
it
it
done
to you
and cleaned
guys.
up.
Yeah, so do you understand my math where I just came up
I
with
understand
that?
your math, yes. I just wanted to make sure, because it seems like clearly in 22, there was a miscommunication between our finance department and the housing authority as to what was what, right? So,
Yes. And just to clarify, because that resolution says 467.
Correct.
The amount that we expensed from ARPA was 497,500. I know.
this is,
That's the expense that went from our bank to theirs. So that's why we were following that. 497 on the, look on the memo,
yeah,
497 from ARPA and 450 from the general fund.
interfund due from, right, inter balance sheet, that's right.
Kim and I were talking, but we went round and round with this with our auditors as well. So
That's because it's really messy.
yes.
Well, why did we give it, how did you justify to the auditors the additional 47,500?
From this memo that was
Yes.
presented, yeah, that's,
Oh, because Kevin sent the memo and that was enough.
and it was discussed at finance, yes. I think because the resolution is using estimates, right? I almost feel like the resolution had a typo too.
All right, well, you have what the
Yes.
committee is
I
recommending.
will send the resolution to all of you. And, so you can see it, and then send it to
Separate,
me.
it'll be under new and unfinished business.
Yeah.
Yep,
Perfect.
okay.
Thank you. And if you haven't been to our building, if you weren't able to make the open house, it's very nice. It turned out to be a wonderful, good move for us, and the staff is very happy. Everybody's got a place to be, and it's quiet, and they can do their work. So-
And you finally sold the other building.
And we finally sold the other building, yep, isn't too bad, so, there's a place for everybody, I guess.
All right, well, thank you very much for coming in,
Thank you.
appreciate it. All right, item 10.3, succession planning.
Okay, I know, we're getting late, but I do want to, I want to have a little bit of a conversation with this committee. It's a conversation I intended to have yesterday with Administrative Services, but we didn't have Administrative Services. But I did talk with Chairman Gottemauer, and I talked some with Teresa about this subject, Chairman Scala and Chairman Bueller. Your strategic plan talks about succession planning and trying to get us in the best position we can when there's departures at our leadership level. Administrative Services kind of updated our succession planning document earlier this fall, and I think we're in a pretty good spot there. We have right now I might just off the top of my head count 8 appointed department heads to leave in the next 10 months. You know, they're of an age that they could do that. So we really need, I think, to be ready. And I feel good and I sleep well at night, kind of knowing that in almost every instance, I know who the next man or woman in could be and will be in many instances. Kind of the first shoe is dropping now on those 8 people. And Bob Ross has told me that he's going to be leaving the Chief County Assessment Office first week in April. Is kind of his target. And I feel good that we've got our next Chief County Assessor on staff in Alex Benitez. And you got to meet Alex a little bit on his presentations to the county board, and I feel like he could do a fine job. When I think about you think about the assessor's office, it has a potential to be a very contentious office. It has a potential to be a very stress-filled office. It has a potential to give the county board and county administration a lot of problems. But ours doesn't. Ours really runs pretty darn smooth, given the potential there for issues. So, you know, kind of given that, if no other reason, the continuity of management style and philosophy, I think, lend itself to continuing on with Alex. So I guess I want to just get on the table that I'd like to have any discussion with anybody offline, but absent any real redirection, I would intend to bring an appointment for Alex forward early next year, probably in our January round of committees. So we put this question to bed. We know who the Chief County Assessor is going to be as we move into April. That's really my message. But I want to kind of get that on the table. That's the direction we're going to be heading, is where my brain is going over the next 4 weeks.
So this succession planning thing was about county staff as opposed to political? I mean, like chairman, Bueller, administrative? And I'll tell you where I'm going here, Peter.
Yeah.
There's a page in this booklet that has the succession plan for this county. And it goes from chair, vice chair, chairman administration, blah, blah. And there's not one thing in that paragraph that says chairman about PED.
I'm not sure what you're looking at.
Larry's pissed off that his name's not on there.
It's the succession plan for the county in the rule book here.
Okay, that's for the elected officials?
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
It goes all the way down to the chairperson of Valley High, but there's not one thing about the chairperson of planning and development in that paragraph.
Well,
I see, Larry's upset that I would get it before he does, I know.
oh boy, the succession planning document that we updated with administrative services goes through all of our 28 departments.
Okay.
And you both appointed and elected, and talked about, you know, if the department head or elected official was out for 30, 60 days or gone, you know, how do we fill that on a short-term basis and on a long-term basis, and who's involved in that approval and in that process? That was really what statute governs, you know, the appointment. If Melissa hits lotto tonight and doesn't come back, that's different than if Carrie hits lotto. There's different mechanisms.
I would come back.
Thank you, Carrie, we like your commitment.
There's difference there.
I come back to say goodbye, but
So there's that structural succession planning, but then kind of working with Cheryl and with our offices and departments, we've kind of been working to kind of understand and building that capacity to know who the next man or woman is in most instances. I think we kind of know who that is. You made it, for example, you made a new position in your FY24 budget in IT to really help us, you know, position the next IT director when Mr. Sullivan decides that he's done. He's one of those 8. Because nothing wrong.
I think a healthy organization is one that you're able to fill positions with internal candidates. Because that means that you're building structure, you're building a sense of team on that department, and that is the healthiest thing for an organization.
I specifically mentioned the assessor's office today because, number one, Bob has told me that he's going to enjoy his retirement come April. But there are 2 appointed positions that require consent of the county board on the switch. One is the county engineer, and one is the chief county assessor. Those are the only 2 that the state requires we have on staff and that the state requires the board sign off on. So that's why I really need to hear, if there's questions about refill, I really need to hear that.
Right,
It's
so.
a pretty small pool of candidates that have this certification and qualifications, but I need to understand if there's.
So what is the, oh, sorry.
So the reason why Mr. Austin had talked to me about this was because a person had come to me and asked me, what was the county's plan for when Bob Ross retired? And I'm like, I don't know, right? And they were they're upset about us not having more oversight and not having an open, they wanted Mr. Austin to open up an application process. And so that is why I knew about this, perhaps before some of the others of you knew, because somebody was already upset about this. A constituent was already mad about this upcoming process. Through talking with Peter, trying to go back and forth between being formal and not formal here, I think that I'm comfortable with Alex. Because I feel like there's probably not going to be, the whole interview process would not include us anyways, right? So I'm comfortable with it, but I also want to address the fact that there are already concerns. Somebody already brought up a concern about this.
Yeah, so what is the official policy when there is an opening? Is it different if it's an appointed, like a department head versus in a part of the rest of the department? What are the policies? I guess I should know this.
The county administrative ordinance gives my position the authority to make hires when a department heads. The exception is that with the county engineer and the county assessor, I really can only make a recommendation, right? Because it needs ultimate sign-off by the county. So is there a formal policy? We've only done this once in the last 20 years, when Donna Mayberry left in 2008 or 9 or so, and we brought Bob in, I think in 10. At that point, I did the interviews. We interviewed folks from around the state. I kind of went back and looked at my records, and we had interviewed from Champaign County and DeKalb County, and Bob was in Lake. But I made the recommendation, and the board accepted it and signed off on it.
So I guess I should have said too, do we have to post that there's an open position? We don't. For any position in the county here, do we have to post?
No,
Okay, we can just hire from internal.
About 10 months ago, our CFO left. And we knew we had a strong candidate on this team. And the smoothest transition for the organization would probably be to hire from within. We knew we had a finance department that was working well and was heading in the right direction. And we hired from within, and we backfilled with Jeremy. I guess that's the parallel I would draw. What more do we want out of our assessor's office? My God, the work they do is pretty phenomenal, given all the tension and stress that goes on there. It's hard to imagine it being better, and we've got a very limited pool of candidates who have these qualifications and interest in doing this, and we've got one on staff. And frankly, Alex has been offered Chief County Assessor Office jobs in 2 other neighboring counties, kind of waiting for this one. And I think he's earned the right to take a good shot.
And I just, people ask me what the process is too, so I just needed to know. Thank you.
Okay, anything else on this item? All right, thank you. We're on to 11.1.
And this will be quick too, right?
Unless people have a lot of questions. Do I need to sit here?
I'll tee this up a little bit. When speaking of ARPA, we had $7.5 million we kind of earmarked for the health department. And we're getting now to about a year out from when we have to know where all these dollars are going. And been kind of working with Melissa and the Board of Health and
Scala, Chairman Mueller, we kind of had a conversation a couple weeks ago. We thought we'd do a quick little update. We did it to Public Health last week, and it's today, so you only have about 6 slides to kind of show where we're at.
That is correct. Okay, so basically, just to outline our process, so we develop the project ideas internally. We run them through Bronner because we know they have to meet the eligibility criteria. And then we bring forward a resolution. It's reviewed by the Board of Health. They recommend it to come to the county board. We complete a spreadsheet for Bronner. If anybody's not familiar with that process, they basically look at what we have put in there. They provide their comments and essentially say it is eligible or it's not eligible based on what we presented. So as of now, we have obligated or expended $3.6 million. There's roughly 14 projects that are completed or in the pipeline. You've seen almost every one of these in the form of a resolution. The only one that has been approved by Bronner that you haven't seen a resolution for is the mobile clinic, and that is coming. Does anybody have any questions yet in terms of what we've done? Okay. Let me just point out one thing, because with regard to the digital review software, so that is something we are sharing. We're paying for P&D to have those licenses and those subscriptions because it is a digital review application that allows us to share information because there's a lot of back and forth communication between our environmental health division and P&D. Okay, so then we have the remaining 3.9 million. We have capital improvements we're proposing for the Crystal Lake facility. These have run through Bronner at this time. We now have to prepare a justification because it will be over $1 million, so we're working on that. And then a resolution will come before you. We also have our community health initiative projects, so our MAP grants are proposing to do a grant-making process similar to what you did for Advance McHenry County. These are to advance our community health improvement plan priorities. And so we are working with finance and working with Bronner to develop that application piece that they need to review. It would then go on Neighborly, and then they would review every proposal that we receive. Or there may be a process where the health department selects or prioritizes the ones we want them to review. Then they would come forward to the Board of Health and the county board for approval via resolution. Conceptually, Bronner has already approved these things, but until we know precisely what people intend to do with those projects, we won't know for sure if they all meet the eligibility criteria. So again, I think I said this on the last slide, but essentially we are developing that grant program application. We're gonna have Bronner look at it so that we all understand the process. We will have to get a license, is that right, for Neighborly so that people can apply there the same way that it worked with Advance McHenry.
So how long do you anticipate, how long would that grant, it's like a grant, it's the same process, right? How long would that go for?
So we want to launch it early next year, and then they would have through 2026 to expend those dollars. So we're not anticipating at this time to grant annual awards. We want to grant a project that's 2.5 years with a larger amount, have fewer projects ideally with a larger amount with measurable impacts over that period of time.
Anything else?
But we're just sort of, you launch early next year, make awards summer, late summer, and then they've got, we know where the money's going. They've got, 2+ years to spend. Melissa has addressed our village manager group a couple times kind of on this concept, so they know that it's coming. Some of our communities may be applicants to help, advance some of these issues.
And just the priorities are behavioral health, Diabetes, access to care, and obesity and active living. Those were the priorities identified in the plan.
Thank you. 11.2,
Interesting to see what comes forward.
What?
It'll be interesting to see what comes forward, what kind of projects are out there.
Yes.
It'll be interesting. Sorry.
that's all right. Barry?
I don't have anything formal. I thought it would be a long meeting, so unless you have questions.
Oh, I do have a question, because when we just approved another we're putting forward the ARPA grants. I had thought that we had allocated nearly all the money except for a reserve we were holding for MCEC. So how much is left? How much because I thought we allocated everything.
We had included both of those projects in like what we were kind of setting aside.
So we're done now. We're now ready to review where things are.
You know, I'll have Carrie update the master list and send it out. We're pretty close.
We have soft $250,000 on fiber that Adam is gonna address the full committee of the whole a week from today, kind of where we are on fiber, because there's just so much money, but it's taking longer to get it out. And so that is something we're gonna have to keep our eye on. I'm not gonna be able to give you a hard number how fast it's gonna get out the door.
So we might spend some of our money on fiber, because that,
I don't think so.
oh, you just said $250,000.
Well,
In ARPA.
our
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
You have to use it by 26.
I have a question, Carrie. In the CAL on the budget, there was a question about the interest that had been included in the budget on the general fund, and you had stated 1.3 million on checking accounts and 2 million on investments for the general fund. Could you let us know interest projections for the other funds and then whether or not that was included in our budget?
I already used the projections that the treasurer's office gave us.
Well, I know that the treasurer had presented information and it wasn't really clear, I think, to the board on what that interest was and how it broke down and whether or not it had been included. And I just think it's good for us to know so that we can track, you know, if we've got excessive revenue that we hadn't included and just know where it is and follow it along.
So just to clarify, we talk a lot with Donna about that throughout the year. So all of that was included, I would say with the exception of RTA, because I think that's a newer investment for her, but I can send you.
I was gonna
So we
say,
might be a little low in that.
They've been doing a lot of work really recently, and so just to make sure that we're updated and that we understand so that we can see this. And then I have another question, follow-up. Are we going to be able to track monthly where we stand on maybe where expenses have come in under what we projected and revenues have come in over what we projected on the budget?
Yes.
So we can see
I have on my
actuals?
list to do quarterly, and I think I
Okay,
owe you
quarterly.
Do you want
That's
monthly?
reasonable. Quarterly, start with quarterly.
Okay.
If we, you know, but because it's gonna be the end of the quarter in a minute, so
Okay.
we can see. Thank you.
We had some questions about cannabis revenue also that I was talking with Chairman Bueller on Monday, and he kind of asked me to get a little bit sharper on that one also. We budgeted for fiscal 23 $1 million even on cannabis revenue. What did we finish? We're estimating to finish about 1.2.
Well, so again, we only have through August. So the state collects through August and then distributes in November. So it's a little harder to project like the end of the year for the cannabis. But if we just look at our last 3 months and assume that that's how we'll finish the year, we'll be about 1.11 for cannabis.
And for fiscal 24, knowing there's more establishments coming, we estimated 2.3 million in revenue.
Yeah.
Perhaps too conservative, but we don't want to, we'd rather be surprised than disappointed.
I don't want it to go up in smoke.
Cheech.
The only thing that I would ask is in January, we should have a lighter meeting. So maybe if you could bring some dashboard stuff our quarterly,
I would love that, and I'll bring you ClearGov too.
there you go. Sounds good.
I know, you guys will all be excited for
All
that.
right. We had no contingency, EDC. I think the biggest thing that we're working on the EDC is setting up the parameters by which we go out to look for a new president of the organization. So that's not only starting with the job description, but then that's also going to the direction that the board feels like we should go. We've had a lot of discussions amongst the board about the role of the board and how we feel needs to be more active. So the board members need to be more active in helping the EDC become a stronger entity. So under Jim's leadership, the board took more of a hands-off role approach, and I think we learned that that didn't work so well. And so we have a lot of board members that want to be a lot more active, which is great. And so setting that level of expectation when we go out to start interviewing. I think the other big challenge that we're having is looking at the compensation for the president. When you start looking at the data from what other EDCs are paying their president, we are woefully under what that is. And so the question is, we can't really, based on current financial data, it's very difficult to justify paying anything more than what we're currently paying. But we also realize that there's going to be talent pool ramifications from that. And so I think the board has to decide what are we going to do to deal with that, because that's a real issue.
Is it okay to make a comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
I've been giving that some thought, and one of the things that I was wondering, I agree with you about what the director, the president is doing with the CEDC. The guidelines, the strategic plan, the vision, has it been enhanced? I mean, or is that, this would have to be done tangent to the new director, the new president, so that we had somebody that had the capability? There's just so much more potential in that organization. And so I'll just throw that out there as a thought.
No, I think, I agree with you. I think the board agrees with that. And so we're trying to, it kind of has to go hand in hand, right? And because you don't want to hire someone that has different vision and focus than what the board feels or the county feels or whatever, however you want to put as that classifier. But on the other hand, it's going to be challenging to try and find the person that we feel can do the best job based on what we're currently paying,
Totally agree. If you looked at a county that was demographically similar to ours, and then one that would have very successful results, that might be a great model to look at on their economic development, and that they've been very aggressive and made a splash.
Right.
That might be, and then still under.
Yeah.
No, but just even have it.
No, right, and we started doing it. We've started collecting data from all the different regions, counties, through our involvement at the county in the different organizations we are. That data is readily available to us, and so we're compiling all that to kind of where do we fit, right? We're kind of, McHenry County as a whole is kind of in the unique position where we have some areas which are very developed and some areas which are really rural, right? So we can't, even Kane County, we can't really copy off of Kane County because that's, you know.
We're unique because of that limited access
Yeah.
highway that really controlled our growth, and we have that pastoral, you know. But if you look at the demographics of Sangamon County, even like Tuscaloosa, Alabama, I don't know the county name, these are areas of, I mean, there's Champaign-Urbana, there's across the country, there are some that pop out, and then look at the success of their economic development and how they've approached it. Because some of those, they're two extremes. Tuscaloosa, they had two large drivers in the economy. We're very blessed in that we have a very diverse economy. So it's a great opportunity. That was my thought in November at the dinner, just a great opportunity, so.
I don't know, is there anything else you want to add, Peter?
You use the word opportunity, we use that a few times this week. You know, let's look at this as a glass half full, and this is an opportunity. We did have a virtual meeting earlier this week. Chairman Scala and Chairman Bueller actually sat in on it, also talking, you know, with the whole EDC board about, you know, the selection process and what's that going to look like. We're going to have the annual meeting on Tuesday of next week, and Stephen Ballot, the CEO of Flowcon, is going to be brought in as the new chair, and I think Steve's already demonstrated he's going to be a very active chair, and he wants to get going.
Oh, I guess that's the other thing. So.
It is a big deal.
Well, no, it is. It is. And so just so the committee is aware, I offered to be vice chair of the board.
Because you're not busy.
Well, when we looked at the people that were currently on the exec committee, we had two people leaving. One was unexpectedly resigned, and not anything had to do with what was going on, just for personal issues. And then our current chairman, Jim, is leaving because he's going off. After having the discussion, I felt for continuity, especially in a transition, it was not good to put someone new on the board right into a vice president position. And so I offered, I said, it's for a year. I said, until we can get other people up to speed and transition them in. I can definitely help Steve in what's going on and help the board. So I offered, and they were happy, and I said, well, it's just for 1 year. Remember that, it's 1 year. So, but ultimately, we're trying to get even succession planning on the board so that we don't run into the kind of positions like we just ran into. So, anyways, sorry, I forgot to mention that. Anything else, Pete? Okay. Naturally,
McHenry County, thank you so much. We will be meeting at 3:30 this afternoon at the Loft at Ethereal, 140 Cass Street, Woodstock. One of the key items on the agenda is in connection with Jim McConaughey leaving, who actually was our chairman, is looking at the interim chairman. So we're going to probably formalize the installation of a new interim. So that's a key item on the agenda. We're also going to be talking about some task force that we have looking at different areas of Natural McHenry County as we transition to that destination marketing organization. Key things looking task force on marketing, task force on bylaws and policy, and a task force on marketing the data that we have and we collect and we have access to, and that can be value to our partners out there. Just want to report we did receive the state grant, the state tourism grant that came in for fiscal year 24. It is $334,762. That is actually $5,345 less than last year. But the stipulation on how that money can be used changed slightly. We only have to have a 25% match to those dollars on the eligible expenses. Only certain expenses are available under that grant dollar, as opposed to the previous 50% match. So it gives a little more flexibility just in how the organization can spend this dollar. So we think that's a positive. And that's about it.
Okay. All right, we all got the email from our county auditor, so we won't have a need for executive session. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn at 11:30. Terry and Teresa, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.